having a successful man in the first place. Because immediately everyone goes to like the high status professions, and it's like, no, there are men that are earning less than 6 figures that are considered, competent in whatever hierarchy they found for themselves. So I think that's really interesting that we have to go to, it's just the small pool of arrogant, domineering men that we low key kind of find attractive because we don't necessarily want to be dealing with the men who would just say yes to everything and everybody.
But this is sort of my issues with when we're lost in kind of trying to define what female and what male are, is that, as we've kind of already defined, that there's different people in different material circumstances, right? So pre-industrial society is not necessarily going to have the same expectations on the individual. And that's going to change how people relate to their gender roles as they're prescribed. And I think likewise, even in a single country, you're going to have people at different classes. They're going to have different gender roles thrust upon them because of those classes. And so I think when we try to make these like mass generalizations, we just end up it ends up sounding kind of conspiratorial. And I think also it ends up telling people who they are when they're standing there saying, that's not my experience. And I think it's so much easier to just imagine us as having different experiences. Yes, there is something to gender. I think what kidology reminds us is, I think for me personally, gender is co-created, right? I think there are really affirmative, like existentially affirmative experiences I can have with gender. And those are often created with other people and how I feel in relationship to them. But I think gender as this assigned category to like essentialize a single person is always going to kind of fall a bit flat. And you're just always going to be making these like very vague generalizations that don't really help us like address some of these crises, which we all see. Like we all seem to agree that there are these certain crises.
Mm-hmm. I like that idea that gender is co-created, and I'm kind of actually Allie, kind of responding to your initial point, like your way back point at this point. But I find these conversations about the woman experience really interesting because, again, I am a person who lacks, for instance, the reproduction instinct. I lack that instinct. Mm-hmm. And I chose a fabulous partner. I'm engaged, and I chose that partner partially based on the fact that in our lifestyles, we don't want to have children. And so this idea that at least traditional women are choosing people based on their success as their individual gender is just, I don't even have a question for it. I just find it really fascinating to hear you guys talk about it.
So I'm trying to understand your last sentence. Do you think you can repeat it?
My last sentence
yeah, like, because I'm trying to, sorry, these are like, it's not necessarily in my wheelhouse. So there's
Oh, fuck me. I just realized, I don't know if we can play at night because I think, it's gonna be like the same like 4 fucking people, right? I think if we queue late. What the fuck? Why does it do this?
looking at, because people like see that I'm light of what was an average man. So he's 5'9", he's overweight or obese, and he's earning less than $50,000 a year. Because I kept hearing from women that they were just kind of think like, oh, I am in an average marriage. And so my perspective on that was like, no, I don't think that we are dating average men. So it depends on the metrics that you're looking at. Because people like see that I'm light-skinned, conservative, pregnant, married, and there's a lot of us who are just like, oh, clearly you just want this like white collar doctor situation. Although that's like kind of what I got going on. I call it periwinkle collar. But other women find men that are competent in their own social realms to be attractive anyway, even if the money's not there. Like, I asked Erudite, you know, because they were trying to flame her. She's a progressive wife on my channel. And I asked her, I was like, so, like, what do you look up? What do you admire about your husband? And the laundry list was long, you know? So, like, it might not be a schmillionaire, but he's got a lot going for him. And I think we really neglect that. But I would just encourage women to listen to their bodies, because I thought all this stuff was nonsense for a very long time, because I didn't know that there were different like hierarchies of men, different qualities of men, and that's just life. You know, I'm not even the top tier quality woman. I've seen Japanese women; they scare me, they frighten me. Very competitive, but you know,
in a good way. She means they're very attractive. Weppy was uncertain what that meant.
Oh yeah, well, so I started thinking.
This guy didn't go like have fun me last time.
My ovaries, and I would look around, and I would think in public when I was looking at men. Yes, I would sleep with him. No, I wouldn't. I had way more no's than I had yeses. But it's because I started thinking like, well, what does like my vagina think is attractive? What are my ovaries like? Granted, women have types, but I was just starting to see across the board, there are some objectively physically masculine things that we think are cute. Have I heard men open their mouths and say things that—
What's your dollar amount to switch to streaming on Kick exclusively? I told Train $5 million for 2 years, but that would be like the number to get me to like really consider it. But it's a big ask, because you're like basically saying, like, you're banking everything on this platform succeeding, and you're throwing away your streaming potential on, like, YouTube. It would almost be like you're almost, like, in my mind, you're almost asking, like, how much do you want to, like, to heavily consider retirement? That's what I'm thinking.
Falls into a niche that, like, a lot of these normative statements don't fit me super well. The problem is that they're normative because they apply to, like, probably 60% of the population to some extent, right? I think, Weppy, though, you touch on something that's really important when talking about, like, gender norms, which is, like, rigidity of gender norms, right? A lot of times, particularly in, like, traditional movements, we're going to see, like, a rigid conception of gender that arises.
You would give up VODs, right? No, I wouldn't. I'm trying to get something set up with Rumble. We'll see. Aiden gets 150 million, but they don't offer to see fun. Do they really offer Aiden 150 million? I'm not sure if I believe that. How many viewers does he get streaming? Is he like a 50k view streamer, or is he like a 20k view streamer? Post Aiden Rot. I'm sorry, post Andrew Tate. I think it's 100k? Oh. If he gets 150 to 100k, is he bigger than XQC? What was that noise? Oh, what happened?
And a lot of our reality is informed by like the fairy tales that we listen to when we were young, where like you know, we have these like valiant soldier men basically, and that's when you'll be happy, is when you meet this successful, brave, you know, man, which, you know, is accurate. But I also think that it's we're in a capitalistic society in which the only luxuries we can afford, the only way we can be truly comfortable, is if we find some semblance of you know, comfortability. So success, money means that you can live a comfortable lifestyle in which you're not living to work, right? Like, I think that most women,
I think I'm dead.
I think that it's in feminine nature to be, you know, to relax. I think that men are more restless, like naturally, biologically. And so I think that women will sort of naturally, this is an essentialist view, but I think that women will sort of naturally try to find men who can give them a lifestyle in which they do not probably have to work as much as they want. There are obviously outliers of women who really want to work, but yeah, I think that you talk about a lot of this like it's mostly biological, and I would probably say that it's probably
what, dude? My
the fact that we live in a
thing on my keyboard is so off.
also
I didn't hotkey anything.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree that like some of it's, you know, like social, but I think when we're thinking about, you know, gender roles and stuff like that, we gotta look at it through, I think, Chesterton's Fence is what it's called. I suck at the story so bad. Whatever. All I know is these two dudes, they saw a fence, and one guy said, I want to knock down this fence. And the other guy told him, and he said, hey, before you knock down the fence, you might want to find out why it's there in the first place. So, like, my issue is when we're always reeling against these gender roles, it blinds you from finding out which ones are going to work within your relationship that you wouldn't have known unless you tried. That's how I ended up in more traditional values in my relationship in the first place. My husband thought he wanted like independent boss babe, triathlete, physicist, everything, and it turns out he just really likes a woman who, you know, makes him breakfast in the morning. And I like making him breakfast in the morning. I did undergrad, I did all that, and I was even a supervisor in the military, so I got promoted in 3 years. And like how sweet he is.
I have to take these keys off. I can't play with these keys.
Means so much more than any.
I know. It must be because there's a lot of like slow, shitty typers or something, and you guys are just used to like having your hands anywhere on the keyboard. I don't know how people play with the G keys on any of these. Fuck. I always said in the past I wouldn't buy another one of these just because I can never, ever, like my hand just never feels like it's sitting right on the keyboard. Holy shit! It's so fucking annoying. I didn't hotkey any of my units.
This has the potential to end the internet.
I wish that Logitech made these, because these keyboards are cool. They're good keyboards. They look nice. They've got good whatever. I just wish they made them without these horrible keys on the side. It's so irritating. What are you talking about? These fucking keys right here. It's so stupid. It's like such a dog shit idea. It's for people that just don't type. It must be just for gamers. They don't, or I don't even know. I'm not sure. Like my hand is anchored to the left side of the keyboard. That's what I sit on. But when I go to look for that sitting thing, my hand will gravitate towards these dog shit G keys, and then I'm hitting like G5 when I'm trying to hit control. And it's so fucking annoying. Oh my god, I hate it so much. G915. Is that the wireless one? I'm never replacing batteries on anything I ever use in my entire life ever again. So if that's the wireless one, it's wireless. I can't do it. Show your... Oh, nice. And this fucking game started. I have no... Oh, did I? And I must have muted something. I don't even know what the fuck I hit on this fucking keyboard.
Would say like I'm kind of on the conservative side of things. Republicans irritate me, but like the point of it is to see, okay, in general, does this woman like flowers? Let me get her the flowers. In general, does this man like a sandwich? Let me make him a sandwich. If it doesn't work, then you know that gender stereotype was a miss, and you have to cater your behavior to that person's personality. It's not all gonna hit. Like there's men that like to cook, you know what I mean? And there's women who hate a miss, and you have to cater your behavior to that person's personality.
Why is everyone so sad nowadays? Right? Why are we facing an epidemic of loneliness, an epidemic of sadness, mental depression, and things like that is on the rise? What's going on, gang? We're going to talk about that. Tuesday, we're going to have a guest on for the call-in show, and then Friday, we might be talking about the hashtag Say Her Name discourse that has been going on. Interesting stuff. That's not set in stone. I have to get the right guest list out for it. But thank you for being here. If you like this show, if you like the content, hit that follow button. Twitch.tv/WickTV if you're watching on someone's YouTube show right now, or in the future on the VODs. You can find my YouTube on the link below. YouTube.com/@Wick-TV. We just got monetized, or we actually applied for monetization, gang. So hooray. Our Mr. Girl panel went viral a little bit. It's up to like 40,000 views, so it's going well. But anyway, we're gonna raid out. Are you gonna be streaming after this, Erudite, or are you done? Okay, I'll raid out into you. You guys, if you'd like, can continue the conversation, or you know what? Women, do whatever women do. I don't know what.
Yeah, how dare you? How dare you? Look at Wick, the moderator, cucking his own show. What the fuck?
I gotta go.
I got things to do at 9 p.m.
9 p.m. It's like 11 here in God's.
Typical.
When he says things to do,
move,
yeah, he's for sure going to bed.
How we were friends.
I didn't run. I didn't run. I didn't run.
Okay, I'll see you guys later. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Okay, now the chatter's gone. No, thanks for coming, gang. It was really nice to meet you all. And Kidology, Awesome. Happy birthday again.
Thank you very much. Thank
happy
you.
birthday.
Oh yeah.
We should sing happy birthday all together, okay?
Yeah.
3,
1, 2,
2,
3.
1. Happy birthday to you.
Successful.
It's me. So thank you.
Yeah. If any of you want to like come on sometime and talk about, you know, the traditional whatever. I mean, it's negotiated. Like my husband feeds me. So anyway, if any of you guys like he does. Well, like what the hell am I supposed to say? What's wrong with these?
I was
people?
worried. I wasn't sure, to be honest, Allie.
By your hair.
Yeah, well, that's what people used to think. They think that I was like groomed because he's older too, and I'm like, I met him when I was 25. If you guys like want to come on that side of YouTube, you're totally invited. It's not as scary as people make it out to be. So.
I sent you a friend request.
Bad wife YouTube.
I think just because I'm thin and light-skinned and married, I think that. Oh, and I like cows or something. So I think that's how I got put in there. I have 11 tattoos. Like I don't.
Nice.
Yeah.
Allie's an onion. Every layer you uncover, you're like, what?
Yeah, I'm just a normal lady who figured out that I wanted, you know, probably if we could swap parents, Kyla. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, you make your path yourself. So if you guys ever want to come on sometime and just chit chat, it's worthwhile to explore. It's not all, you know, oppressive. You'll know, like if it works and he's really happy and you feel warm inside, that it's a good thing. So. Cool. See you later.
Well, it's to make my man as unhappy as possible.
Well, I got plenty. I got girlfriends for you too. Okay, see you later.
Bye, Allie. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, yes. Well, I've got to go to bed. So, yes, it was
Well, happy
fantastic.
birthday and good night.
Thank you so much. Thank you, and we will definitely talk.
Text me back.
And I need to still answer your questions, so we'll talk.
And
Yeah,
text me back, kid, at some point.
Oh right. Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, I'll do that. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. I'll just serial stalk you until you do.
Oh yes. It was amazing to meet all of you. If you could like link your socials so I can follow all of you, because you all just have such fascinating points and discussions and everything. So yes. So thank you so much. Thanks. Bye.
All right.
Lab, I wanted to say sorry. I just mostly was speaking for the platform because I just didn't want to get into the litigating it. It's going to make people mad on both sides. So I just wanted to let you know. Apologies, but my priority was just shutting down that conversation.
Shutting down what conversation?
You're fine.
Did I miss something
get it.
cool?
It's really contentious.
Yeah. And we don't need to get into it, but I just wanted to let you know where I was coming from and why I was motivated to speak.
Yeah, I get it. I wasn't trying to do like a platform dick thing. It was just sort of, it just kind of came up because it was like, we were talking about like bad actors and how does that not come up? You know what I mean? But
What a horrible fucking morph right on top of all my. Oh fuck me! I think I might be dead.
But this was awesome, and if I looked like I've been telling them I want a woman panel on feminism.
Do 4 queens.
Wait.
Well, let men do it, right?
Lab, do you believe in post-patriarchal societies now? You described what I call a post-patriarchal society, and when I called it that, you eye-rolled at me. But it sounds like you agree with me.
I agree on that. Remember when we had our talk and I was like, yeah, well, the patriarchy seeps into things that are... The patriarchy doesn't have to be current for it to affect our reality.
Yeah, but you would eye-roll because I refuse to call it patriarchy. I call it post-patriarchal.
I eye-rolled because I felt like, first of all, that was them.
Okay, that's fair. Hey, yeah, you've changed your position, that's fine.
She's pivoted since then, okay? Let her change.
I've read a couple books. I've read a couple books since then. No, I think that also, well, I don't know if I've actually formally apologized to you yet about this, but I feel like I wanted to, about like the pick-me stuff. I think that it is impossible to live as a woman without internalized misogyny. And
God, she's so boring to listen to talk when no one is like calling her out on this shit. It's like all the most standard fucking like.
And I think that I felt like I caught like an air of what I felt like.
I think this battlecruiser morphed to me, so I think it's gonna die.
And
Yeah.
it really triggered me, so I hopped on it. But
You've changed your position. I am clear of all charges. Hey, I just want to know that I'm clear of all charges, okay?
Successful.
I didn't. My position is similar. It hasn't changed.
Okay, I think I win.
Wait, you still think I'm a pygmy?
It's matured. I don't think that you're a pygmy, but I think that all women.
All women are pygmies.
I think that we all exist in a world where we have to make choices that put us in you know.
Oh, come on, say it from your chest. So you think I'm still a pygmy? You just think it's understandable that I'm a pygmy.
Yep.
She's saying we're all
about to hit off. Hello.
Well, hey, what's up?
You called me. Well,
actually, you called me out of desperation.
You called me and said, "Want to chat?" And I said,
how do you feel about the statement, like, men and women's roles have kind of like changed throughout history, and like the gender norms and all of that are assigned like socially, et cetera, et cetera?
I think it's an extremely unsophisticated look at history, is how I kind of feel about it. I've been harping about this. My stream is gonna kill me because I've said this like 16 times today. I think gender roles emerged out of like some level of like necessity and some element of like biological proclivity. The issue is that like the whole point of the gender roles traditionally and historically, not that they always played out because people are stupid and we're very rigid, but the purpose of them was to maximize what people are good at and minimize what they're bad at, right? And so like, am I answering your question?
Yeah, I think so. I feel like I just don't like the statement because I don't think it's very true at all, and I feel like it misses a lot of what's going on.
You don't like the statement because you think it's completely like gender roles are just not socially constructed at all?
I think they're socially constructed, but they like that construction probably maps out into something kind of real, right?
Yes.
Like
yes.
like for instance, like the idea of like a construction worker. That's probably not like a category that's found in the universe. That's a socially constructed thing. But if you've got a dimorphic species and one tends to like be physically stronger than the other, then that's probably going to be the one that occupies that socially constructed class, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even when you look at things like construction workers, there's going to be a whole bunch of biological markers that are going to like predilect certain types of individuals to select construction work even as their primary mode of like work versus something else. Like there's a reason, not always, but there's a oftentimes strongly like personality types, right? Like men who are going to be less educated and interested in education are going to be much more interested in pursuing things like labor trades because they just don't have it. And that's somewhat going to be driven by their, for example, like openness to experience, which seems to be decently biologically driven.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. All right. Just curious. I just got the end of that panel. I turned on the last, and I heard somebody say that again. Society, changes our social blah blah blah, or some bullshit. You know what I mean?
Well, there's this. It's something that we have to contend with, which is that the same. I don't know how we say they're wholly socially constructed when universally most cultures have emerged with very similar gender constructions.
Yeah,
there's some differences, right? Like skirts and clothes and unimportant stuff, but things like child rearing versus labor, hunting, and like tribal warfare have always been clearly gendered and separated in almost all cultures.
Yeah, I think the key word that a lot of people miss is, or the key concept philosophically is that just because something is socially constructed, Vosh fucks this up all the time. Just because something is socially constructed doesn't mean it's arbitrary. And a lot of people mix those two things up. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, like the fact that this is something that's actually more interesting work from like evolutionary anthropology or ego psych, which is looking at, like this is ego psych at its best, which is looking at universally emergent social constructions and asking ourselves why almost every single successful culture arose to these things, right? This is a really interesting conversation in ego psych with patriarchy, right? It's not self-evident why specifically patriarchies emerged almost universally in almost all successful cultures. Like, why were patriarchies selected for it and matriarchies were not? Because there was unquestionably cultures that had matriarchies, but most of them got dominated probably by patriarchal societies. Like, why is this the case? Which is a really interesting question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay.
That's all.
What else? How do you feel it went?
Which one? Your chat with Pearl?
What?
Your chat with Pearl?
Oh no! Why did you watch that today?
Yeah, I watched it today.
Oh.
Bro, I can't figure this girl out. Is she just dumb, or is she grifting really hard?
Nope,
I guess you probably don't want to say.
Why would I not want to say? I would say.
I don't know if you want to burn the bridge. I don't know if you want to burn the bridge.
Oh, that is true. You know, I do have a reputation for being like very cordial and not.
I thought you were on a new arc to me of leaving Nebraska Steve behind.
That was last year. This year is supposed to be being a little bit more brutal than normal, I think.
Oh really? 2023 is the year of blood rage.
Not blood rage. Just standing up for what I believe in. Fuck me. I should have waited until I finished this game. Fuck. I'm so sorry.
Are you playing League right now?
No, I'm playing StarCraft.
Oh yeah, people were so excited.
Yeah.
Do you want me to just entertain chat for like 2 seconds?
Well, no, I
can
had
just take questions.
relevant things to say. I'm just trying to remember what they were. He's on 3 bases. He's on Mac. This is so fucking stupid. I hate these fucking players. Wait, what? That's not feedback. That's not even real. So what was your overall?
Sorry. Yeah. Okay, I've noticed. Okay. A couple of interesting psych things. So not even psych things, just behavioral stuff. So I've noticed that when she's feeling backed into corner specifically by you, she does like this consistent like
Oh yeah, that's stupid fucking.
But I had a thought while I was listening to this, which is when I think about the different panel shows that I've seen that are live, right? Like Myron and Pearl and a couple of other people that do it. There's a very interesting thing that I've noticed on Pearl's show versus, like, for example, Myron's, where people are very willing on her show to interrupt her, whereas people are pretty hesitant on Myron's show to interrupt him. And in most live debates that I see, people are pretty hesitant to overstep the moderator too much. I'm curious, like, I have my own thoughts about that, but I'd be curious if you had any thoughts as to, like, why. And I don't think it's as simple as just like, well, she's a woman.
I think it's really tempting to do the woman thing, but I think it's probably has more to do with the fact that she's relatively passive. And I think from what she said to me, she said that was the first show where they've ever kicked anybody off before, ever. So I wonder if she's gotten interrupted a lot in the past and she just doesn't do anything about it. Because if she doesn't do anything about it, then you would expect to see that type of behavior flourish, right?
Yeah. One thing I've been thinking about, so you know people who, like, when you're in a group setting, they get interrupted all the time, like probably more than on average. But those people that get interrupted when they're talking to you about it, it's like this awkward thing where, like, I agree that you get interrupted more, but sometimes it's because, like, you ain't saying anything anyone wants to listen to. Have you ever, like, noticed that?
That can happen, yeah.
I don't know how to talk about people with that.
Oh, well, that's...
I think a lot of times with Pearl, it's very interesting. What I noticed with Pearl specifically with her panelists is when she was debating you and, like, talking back, like, giving her own opinions, people were very quick to interrupt her. But the moment she said, so I have a question, almost everyone quieted right away. So it, like, showed me that the group is hearing her the whole time. They were just deciding when they cared or didn't care to, like, hear what she had to say. And I'm not just trying to pick on Pearl. It's, like, something I've been thinking about for a little while, like, even in my own Discord community of, like, what do I do about people that always get talked over, but part of why they're getting talked over is because, like, nobody wants to listen to them. I don't know how to communicate that to them because it's very harsh and not the best news to get, obviously.
Sure. Bro, I don't know what the fuck I'm supposed to do about this.
Other than that, yeah, I mean, I think you did really well. It was very funny seeing you be in between fighting. I like the riz that you're attempting with the outfit change. It's interesting to see. Did you decide aesthetic matters? You've convinced yourself?
A little bit, just because I have to fight so hard against the blue hair, so now I have to, like, compensate in another area. So I'll probably, for at least as long as I have this, I'll probably have a wardrobe and shit.
Really? Just until you get rid of the blue hair?
I guess it depends. I mean, if I already have the clothes, I'll probably hold on to them a little bit. Bro, are you fucking serious? This is actual fucking AIDS. I don't know what units I'm even supposed to make against that. Yeah, maybe, yeah. Why, is that a problem? Oh.
Well, I just think it's like one area that I've always been kind of confused about your platform, because I think you would agree that the aesthetic you communicate to people really matters, right? And that aesthetic is communicated in a ton of ways, which is the way you talk, body language, all that sort of thing. But it's obviously visual as well, right? Like the clothing you're wearing, the hairstyle you have, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's just a matter of like how far you want to go, or like what kind of values I'm trying to reinforce it at. Because I also I do like the idea of being relatively unassuming. And then exceeding those expectations, like that's a fun. Oh shit! It all comes down to this, okay?
Are you shooting? Should I shoot like pew pew? Get him.
Oh, bro, it's fucking over. It's fucking over, bro. Not even fucking close.
Wow, good shooting.
Get out.
Well done.
Oh my god, get the fuck out of my fucking game.
Guns blazing. I don't know what else you say. I've literally. StarCraft it's a space game, right?
Yeah.
Right. I started playing League a little bit.
Why would you do that?
Bad life choices. Guess which role I play.
Support?
Okay, and guess which hero is my main hero?
Lux?
No, I'm a Discord kitten.
A kitten. Oh, Nico?
Discord kitten.
Or
no,
not Nico.
No.
What's the one that sits on people?
Yumi.
Yeah, Yumi. That one?
Yeah.
Nice. Way to go. How is that going? Is it fun?
I see potential. I'm like an old lady trying to play a game that requires like super fast reaction speed, and I'm obviously on my decline, so I don't suspect. But hey, my first game, I hit every time I ulted, I actually like hit multiple characters at the right time. So you know, I feel like that was pretty good. I don't know if people are blowing smoke up my ass, but yeah. Yeah. Other than that, no, I thought your performance on Pro was good, but the lawyer debate was mind-boggling to me. Oh my gosh, the last thing I expected from the Tate defense corner was systemic racial oppression. That was wild.
Yeah, people definitely pay attention to those systems when they're on the receiving end of getting fucked by them, so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you watch that as a viewer. Like, that alone to me would be enough to be like, okay, I don't know if I can, like, buy into this worldview. Because that's been in the past, like, inconsistencies like this is what's, like, led me out of, like, being, like, a funny Christian, for example, or, like, other shit. Like, when I was, like, 18, I was, like, a young earther and stuff like that. And it's just like, then you come across just like evidence that makes no sense. And it's like, oh, okay, well, that's ridiculous. I can't understand. I've been trying to figure out like why people think the way that they do in such a like partisan way.
Mm-hmm.
And do you think that as a society, there's because we taught critical thinking in school for a really long time. But
did we?
Yeah, well, we named it critical thinking.
What did we actually teach in critical thinking?
Well, it would be like things like, what does this essay say? Like, read this piece of thing, and like, what is it arguing for? And you know, like, we were trying to teach kids like how to formulate arguments back, but it feels like it was just an abysmal failure.
I feel like I did that in English.
Yeah, and social studies. At least I did.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions I have when I'm talking to people.
Diamond hands.
There's a lot of questions I have when I'm arguing with people, and I argue, like, if you had to write an essay to argue for something in school, like, this wouldn't cut it. You know that, right? Like, I don't understand sometimes when I'm talking to people. I think I went to a way better high school than I thought, or people just forget everything out of high school, or they just never learn critical thinking at all. Like, yeah, I have no idea. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just trying to figure out if there's a way that, to some extent, a society could systematize not just teaching people like what to think. Like, it felt like a lot of critical thinking came down to just like teaching kids to have a certain opinion, which is like graded on, but like instead teaching people how to think. And I think the lawyer debate was a really good example of this to me, because it was so unequivocally clear that you won the debate, even just like even at a rhetorical level, right? Even if you disagreed with what you said, like, it was demonstrably clear. And yet in the like comment section, you'll see people just like coping. Like, eventually I think TGG took over the comment section and it like changed. But originally it was like comments like, well, winners and losers in debates don't really matter. It's about like the truer argument. You know, the lawyer had the truer argument and stuff like this, where it's just like, I can't fathom the cope required to watch that But most people, when they watch debates, they go, person saying things I like, they must be right.
Yeah, I'm not sure. When you talk about like the critical thinking thing, I don't know. It feels like such a stupid conversation to have because everybody thinks they do it, right? Mm-hmm. No, actually, I'm walking back from that statement. I don't believe that anymore. I used to say everybody thinks they're right, but I something that I lean more heavily into is usually I'll have a conversation with someone. I'll ask them like, what do you do to make sure you're not like stuck like in a stupid thought loop or whatever? And I find that a lot of people don't have answers to that. And I hope that when I ask them that question, it gives them pause a little bit. Where like, well, if you don't have a way to validate your thoughts, or if you don't have a way to figure out if you're kind of getting lost in some bullshit, maybe you need to take a step back and.
You might want to stop talking, or you might want to stop streaming on Twitch if you're talking to Destiny.
I was thinking that it would probably be fine if it was just his voice.
Maybe. Well.
Don't ask him. He probably knows better.
Don't stream voice on Twitch with Destiny. I feel like nobody's gotten clapped for even talking to you ever. Do they care about you anymore? In order to stop streaming to Twitch, I have to end the entire stream.
So.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not super worried about it because I don't have your face on.
Yeah, this is my name is Fate.
Fate. Stupid fucking thing.
I wonder if one thing I wonder is so I feel like your personality traits are pretty rigid. People get mad at me when I say that, but I feel that. I wonder if people's like.
Do you think they're always rigid, or they're rigid by a certain age?
By a certain age, and that age is like 14 or 15, and then you kind of like slowly morph from there. But without like a lot of effort, I think it's very, very, very hard to change. I mean, you can, but it's like a transformation. Like it would have to be like a metamorphosis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, but you believe like if you put in work, you could shift personalities.
A lot of work, yeah.
Yeah. Like you'd have to change your environment to prime different habits and stuff like that.
And I feel like all the stuff in psychology is pointing more and more and more in the direction of early development in childhood. Is like these are the most formative years of your life, and even like health outcomes can be related to psychological stuff that's happening early on. So it seems like those early formative years are super important.
Well, they're especially important in large part because, like, I mean, the more we're getting into things like nature and nurture, specifically in like neuroscience, where we're getting like more like geneticists involved. Sorry, take my dog's water bottle away. Is like the interaction of epigenetics and environmental exposures is like something really critical, particularly when we're talking about like neuroplasticity and neuroscience, right? Like the genes that can be switched on, like, do you know about major depressive disorder, MDD, like much about it?
I maybe it depends on what you're about to ask me. What do you mean?
Okay. Do you know about the epigenetic relationship between MDD and episodes of depression, and like the genes that are related to cyclic major depressive disorder?
I don't, but I feel like by asking the question, you're implying that there are probably inventories or tests you can give to parents, and you can find epigenetic factors that are predictive for children having major depressive disorder. That's my guess.
Okay, we're actually going in that direction right now. There's a study like out of Calgary right now that's looking at like predictive factors using like MRIs and some like blood testing to try to predict who will have a depressive episode. But what I was actually hinting at, Robert Sapolsky talks about this. This is where like a lot of people will be familiar with this concept from. There's a study that was done, I believe, in like 2018 that found that essentially there was a number of people that had basically like, I won't say the name of it, but basically this gene for serotonin. And if people had 4 to 5 major stress episodes, because most depression is caused by stress, right? You have a stressful event in your life kind of sucks, and your system kind of goes into like catastrophic failure, and you develop a form of depression.
Okay.
However, for people that have this genetic sensitivity, if they get 4 to 5 of those, specifically 4 to 5, not 3, not 2, 4 to 5, it can trigger basically a genetic switch to turn on, and these people will develop major depressive disorder, which is a cyclic form of depression that comes back. And these are the people, right? When you ask, why are you sad? People with a stress episode could be like, well, like my mom just died and I got fired from work and like my marriage is on the rocks, right? That's why I'm sad. Whereas people who have major depressive disorder, a lot of times they'll say, well, why are you so sad? And they'll say, I don't know. I have no good reason for it. Which is like unveiling to us like the epigenetic relationship between mental illness and environmental exposures. Because if those people have that marker, but they don't have these major like depressive episodes, they're never going to develop MDD, even though they have the genetic propensity, and their children might, because they might inherit that genetic propensity.
Interesting.
So when we're talking about things like personality and stuff like that, this is where like I think studies into like psychedelics are really, really interesting, because major things that we know that cause like major personality shifts post like 25 is typically some sort of like religious conversion experience, right? So studies on like people who are in jail, one of the major factors that are going to predict the likelihood of them never ever offending again is experiencing like a conversion experience, like a religious conversion experience. But we know that a lot of the areas of the brain that light up when people are having religious experiences sometimes also light up when people are having psychedelic experiences.
Sure.
So like the possibility of like, man, the research on like trauma and depression specifically, of people taking like psychedelics with a therapist specifically, because psychedelics, the more we're understanding about them, seem to be really reliant. I'm sure you might actually have more to speak on this. The environment you're in when you're taking the drug really, really matters.
Probably more, almost more than the drug itself, or like equally, yeah.
Yeah, which obviously I had no idea. But if you take the drug in like a therapeutic setting, it's more likely to have obviously a therapeutic effect. Benefit.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so you're seeing people that have been like basically like besotted with like chronic depression and anxiety from like a trauma experience early on, do this treatment 1 to 2 times, and then immediately just be like freed from it, which is weird because it's very similar when they describe their experiences of like quote unquote freedom. It's very, have you ever heard of like freedom series from like the Christian circles?
Nope.
Okay, don't worry about it.
Okay.
But they basically are kind of doing like, they do basically intense prayer sessions that will be like 8 hours long sometimes. It's really weird.
Okay.
And they'll be like praying over this person to like break trauma, I don't know, spiritual woo-woo about trauma. And a lot of people, when they do come out of it for the better, which to be fair, not everyone comes out for the better in those situations, because 8 hours of like intensive prayer can be extremely distressing for certain people's bodies. But some people who come out and do experience that betterment are reflecting and like using the same type of language that people who have done like psychedelics are using to describe like their trauma shift, which is super, super interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for the religious thing too, something, because we've been arguing about getting raped and all that recently, because, you know, fun conversation. Having like a strong religious background can actually increase your tenacity when it comes to dealing with traumatic events. Like people that have higher levels of religiosity can have lower levels of trauma response, I guess, because it helps them cope with or adapt to whatever the situation is too. So, yeah.
Yeah, particularly if their religiousness has like a slightly liberal bent to it. So fundamentalists tend to do much worse overall in like mental health factors. But people who have a religion, but it's not like a super rigid dogmatic form, mostly fare better on almost all mental health scales. And yeah, they seem to pose a lot more like greater resilience to distressing events.
Yeah.
But you could argue that could be from community. Like, it's hard to distill what specifically is going on. Have you ever had, when you've done psychedelics, have you ever had a religious experiment or like religious-y feeling-y kind of experience? I've never done psychedelics, is why I'm asking.
Sure. I mean, like, it can feel spiritual, but like I'm so fundamentally atheist, and I understand pretty well that I'm like an atheist, so I don't think I would ever have a religious experience on psychedelics. But like you definitely have experiences where I could understand why people would think they're religious for sure. But at least for me, I never have. I've done 2 really, really big trips on mushrooms and not even remotely like religious or maybe spiritual, you could say, but yeah.
Right.
But I imagine that like there's stuff in your head that's going to be coming out based on what you already think, and you know, certain drugs will probably enhance those pre-existing thoughts, I would imagine. Like if you're religious and you do like a big psychedelic trip, you're probably gonna like talk to God, I would imagine.
Yeah. What are the like religious akin, like what are those types of experiences?
Are you asking me like the
for you personally? Yeah, I'm just curious.
When you do really, really, really high levels of psychedelics, there's a concept called ego death. Which I think is like basically what happens. I think this is my understanding of it. Is there's kind of like there's a lot of stuff running under the hood to give you a full on like this is a human and I have a human experience. There's a lot of stuff happening, and when you kind of break your mind a little bit by taking a lot of crazy drugs, you kind of like disconnect a lot of stuff, and you have like a perspective that's left that is like fundamentally different or altered than your normal perspective. And so you're kind of like sitting here like looking at something that doesn't feel like a human or doesn't feel like you or doesn't have like a past. And then I think this is probably where like the feelings of like being connected to the universe and all that shit come in from.
It's very have you ever watched the TED Talk by the neuroscientist who had a stroke on her, like basically her entire, I think, left hemisphere just like shut down?
Nope. Is it good?
It's very akin to what you're describing, of this sense of like connectiveness and like all things, like almost like Wheel of Time, like time is a circle. It's not really like linear or straight, and there's no beginning or clear end. And I am we. It's very interesting. I'd be curious on your thoughts on it. It's super well done too.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen it before, so I can't really comment. But yeah, is there a reason why you've never tried like any psychedelic before, or is this some religious dipshit idea? Or wait, dumbass idea? Not sorry, I didn't mean to say dipshit. Go ahead. That was too extreme.
That's okay. I don't really care. I'm confident in my sense of self. So originally would have been religious stuff. Now it's not really that. It's more so.
Oh, your thing.
Okay, you want to hear a crazy story? So
go for it.
Have you heard my story of my first time doing edibles?
No.
Okay, it was fucking awful. So I took way more than I should have because it was like a homemade brownie. And I clearly got a square that like, because this is the problem with homemade, is that like you can't guarantee how evenly the THC will spread.
Sometimes, yeah.
And I ate it. It was taking a really long time. And so they were like, yeah, just take another square. And then it like hit me, and it motherfucking hit me. I was hallucinating. So, and it's crazy. So I was with Nick and 2 other friends, and they had all done weed before. This was my first time doing like edibles specifically. Actually, no, it was my first time ever doing weed, right? So like never experienced it, and now I'm cooked out of my brain on edibles. And so we're walking around downtown, and the whole time, every noise I hear, I'm pretty sure that we're in World War III. Like there was like a dumpster that banged nearby, and I was like, there's a bomb, guys, we got to get to like the LRT, because our LRT is like below ground. So we got to get down and like get in a bomb shelter and hide. And they were like, no, there's no World War III going on. Like we're fine. And every time I closed my eyes, I would see, the It clown.
Yeah.
I would see him like walking towards me, but he was like in sepia color, like the brown tone. And like the world, like I would just see him coming towards me every time I closed my eyes. So I didn't want to like close my eyes much.
Okay.
And so we're walking around downtown, and we have this strip in my town. So we're kind of doing like this city was doing like some gentrification.
Okay.
And so it was this strip where they had just like sandblasted the sidewalk, and they had also brought in different colors of like concrete. So there was this pattern of concrete along the road that was like checkered all along the strip. And on the strip, they had also put in a bunch of statues. And these statues were like weird statues, were like humanoid figures, like a man in a business suit. They'd have like a pig's head, and they'd have like birds for hands, like super weird, like surreal things. And I'd never seen them before. But then on the side, like all the buildings were like dilapidated, like going to be torn down soon, like super like rough looking buildings. So I've got like this exquisite ground below me, and then these like dilapidated buildings. And there was an art festival that was temporary that moved in that had like these teeter-totters that lit up that you could go on, and they would like make noise. And there was this thing that you could sit in and like pump, and it would like wheel like this story, like this Pictionary, like this picture art story in front of your eyes and stuff like that. So I'm tripping out of my mind, and then there's this crazy shit going on, and we finally get home.
Stop playing Factorio fucking please. I've been watching you since.
I stay high for the next like 2 days. It was really bad. Like
wait, you say that last part again?
I stayed high for like 2 days.
Okay.
So one thing that happened after my brain injury is that like when I do any sort of like alcohol, even I can have like hangovers for 6 days straight. It's really strange. It's only happened after I had my brain injury. Not really sure why. So I'm high for 2 days straight. Every time I close my eyes, I see the It clown. I'm panicking. Nick's trying to leave to like go home, and I'm like, please don't leave me. By the time I sober up, this fucking art festival moves out of town. So we go back there because I was like, I swear I remember this. Like, where is it? And I can't find anything on the internet about it. So we go back to the street. Nothing's there, obviously, except for like the sidewalk and the statues. So I'm like losing my mind. So that was my first time on edibles, where I just like thought I hallucinated. I was hallucinating. I thought it was World War III. It was a really bad experience. So I feel like my level of neuroticism is not well geared towards psychedelics in general. That kind of spooked me off of psychedelics.
Well, yeah. I mean, everybody has a bad edible story that has done edibles.
Yeah.
You should reconsider though. Does Nick
I probably will. I probably will.
Does Nick have a lot of experience with the psychedelic stuff?
A little bit. He definitely like
more than me, and he like is super keen. He wants to try like a bunch of stuff. But yeah, I'm happy to also babysit, but I'll probably try it at some point. But I want to make sure I'm in like a situation where I'm like maximally guaranteed to like not
have weird shit happening. Yeah.
Have weird shit happening to me. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. I've heard shrooms are the safest, but also not the most guaranteed.
At a low dose, like everything will be safe. I think LSD is safer than mushrooms, but I mean, I don't know. Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
Trying to think. Oh, we had a conversation yesterday. Okay, ready?
Oh, yeah.
Who's
we?
Me and my chat and all of TikTok now.
Oh. Is this with the feminist girl?
Maybe. But I don't know which part got clipped to what you've seen. But basically, the question is I think we've probably even talked about this a little bit before, but I haven't like explored it a ton. But I'm starting to think about it more now recently. How much of the trauma related to sexual assault do you think is like socially enforced versus like just will always happen because of like the biological realities of like getting raped?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. There's a really good book that I would first start with. It's called The Body Remembers. It's by Babette Rothschild. Yeah. It's not The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. It's like, it's very heavy, it's very research, it's very boring because it's just like constant papers being cited. It's for sure both, right? In the case of, I think especially early childhood stuff, the level to which people will not remember their early childhood stuff, but have a lot of later on effects that are commonly known to be connected to early childhood sexual abuse is uncanny, right? Really high rates of IBS, really high rates of chronic illness, and high rates of things like panic disorders and things like trauma-esque sounding disorders, right? Gotcha. So I think early childhood, and I think anything that is like penetrating your body to some extent, we don't really understand like the connection between your body and your brain. And there's a lot of cringy pop psych about it right now, where they just like fixate on like the vagus nerve and stuff like that. But there's no way that you could convince me that like a brain with as integrated as a sensory motor system as ours is so connected to our body isn't going to be impacted. This is why like when you're under 2, even though you can't really form like real memories, like episodic memories that you can look back on, you can still have like procedural memories, like learning how to walk, right? So I think there's an element of like body stuff that I think is really connected to sexual assault. The issue is like sexual assault now encompasses so many different experiences that it's hard to generalize my statement to that, right? So I want to be like careful because I don't want to discredit anyone with like certain types of sexual assault that I think necessarily probably more often than not leads to trauma. But we also know that the brain is very relative in a lot of ways. In my studies, obviously, there's going to be scientists who disagree with me. Take my opinion, caveat with a grain of salt, anything that you like. In my view, there's interesting studies that look at, for example, negative childhood experiences internationally, like cross-culturally. And they'll compare, for example, like PTSD and other like my childhood fucked up, I fucked up syndrome type disorders. So attachment disorders, things like that, between kids like in Canada or US versus kids in like, for example, like a third world country, right? So you've got one kid like who grows up, like I'm sure everyone's like met it, like you'll meet, I remember my brother was dating this guy from like, I think Nigeria, right? And he like had tons and tons of scars across his back from where he was switched while he was a child, right? And I look at that and I'm like, that's horrifying. He has scarification from his parents. But he like is very clearly like, oh, I'm not traumatized. When we look at like the prevalence rates of these like mental health conditions that we would expect to be related to like higher levels of, for example, like hitting your child, we don't really see it. Because in a lot of ways, like there are some experiences that I think will always be distressing to people. And then I think there are a lot of experiences that our society tells us whether it's distressing or not. And that is what will inform us about whether we're distressed, especially as kids.
Gotcha. Huh. Interesting. No, that wasn't interesting. It's pretty boring, actually. Okay.
Damn. All right. Well.
I largely agree.
Go back to pew pew pew, okay?
Yeah, well,
pew,
no,
pew,
I
kill
think
the robots.
I agree with you. I was hoping you would totally disagree with me and we could argue about it. I think I lost like 2 friends over over my take for
Really? What was your take?
that I think that some of that plays in, but it's basically women arguing that like, no, rape is always the most traumatic thing in the world and nothing about society has any influence over that, and you're just trying to tell women that like they're not allowed to feel traumatized by something. It's like, that's not at all what I'm trying to say. I'm just curious like to what extent, because I think the original question I proposed was, why is it that sexual assault or rape seems so much more traumatic than even the most like violent of assaults? Right. And like, I can ask people like, what's more? This is a guess. I don't have a poll on this. Maybe I should tell Ayla to make one or fucking whatever. But like, if I were to ask somebody like, what's more traumatizing? Like very low forms of rape, or like the worst of like getting jumped by like 3 guys and getting mugged or whatever. I feel like most people would say like the lower forms of rape. And then like I've talked to other people, even Brittany came on and I'm like, I feel like a lot of people, and Brittany came on and she said, yeah, a lot of people feel like getting raped is worse than getting murdered. And I think you could extrapolate that. I think a lot of people genuinely would say as much. And that's just very interesting to me. And I wonder why.
Yeah, I mean,
like what sets the sexual assault stuff so much further apart from the physical assault stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it's so my friend actually works with sexual assault victims. That's like her job right now, is doing advocacy work.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really interesting talking to her because if you don't know, I experienced childhood sexual assault. I don't remember it at all, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in this state where I had no memories. I just had panic attacks every time men touched me. And I was like, that's weird, right? And then by the time I got older, then I went to like a gynecologist. We noticed some like scarification and stuff. And we are like, oh, okay. Kind of put 2 and 2 together. Asked my mom about it. Weird babysitter with a kind of a weird son. And we're able to be like, okay, presumably this is probably what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So there was this piece of like, I didn't even know the event had happened because I was not old enough to remember it.
Mm-hmm.
But it obviously had impacts on me because I was having panic attacks when men touched me. And I have no knowledgeable experiences with men that were like so bad that I'd be having panic attacks when men like are touching me or coming near me.
Sure.
When I think about what was like more distressing though is, once I realized it happened, is like kind of the experience of like conceptualizing who I am after that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and what the world tells me. And like, I'm really lucky in that like all of my friends and family are like pretty like real trauma informed. So when people say trauma informed, they mean 2 things. One thing means they're gonna like call everything a trauma and talk about trauma all the time. And other people are very, very mindful to like watch their language and say like, how do you feel about this? How would you label this experience for yourself?
Sure.
And I'm lucky that all my friends were the latter type, right? Where they just allowed me to experience it and explore it as needed. And I'm so curious to know, and I can't know, I'd be curious to know how my experience when I realized at like 21 that this event had happened to me would have been if somebody, when I told them about it, freaked out, told me I was a trauma and a victim, and like got really upset on my behalf. Like, how would I have experienced that event?
Mm-hmm.
And I have I don't know, and I can't know. There's no way that I can know.
Unfortunately, yeah.
But there's kind of like this frustration of like, sexual assault really matters. And I think the problem with sexual assault is is the way for a lot of girls that it like fucks with your brain, particularly, right? Like when we talk about things like physical abuse versus like emotional abuse, I don't know. It's hard to quantify like which one's worse. Most people who've experienced both say that it's the emotional abuse that was worse, like the mind fucking that happens, right? And so when we're talking about like a sexual assault, I'm really concerned about like the mind fucking that happens, but I have a hard time because sometimes it feels like there's like stolen valor that occurs, right?
Jesus Christ. Okay, go ahead, get that heat off me. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Where like when some women are talking about like their sexual assault, they're talking about like a situation where like it was really blurry consent. It isn't a good situation. They maybe said yes, but looking back, they're like, I was way too fucking drunk to be saying yes, which is like bad. Like it's not a good thing, right? It's hard to conceptualize that against like, you know, like victims that I've worked with where like it was much more explicit that it was a no. They were completely passed out and drunk and like woke up to somebody inside them. Right? Like these types of situations that are just like much more egregious.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I want to be so careful because I don't want to dismiss people's like experiences. I just think that we need to be really, really careful about like how we're describing them because I'm concerned that we're convincing people that they're like.
This is something that like I'm curious if there's research on it because I don't know if this is But like the comparison that I would make would be like like when a child falls over and they look to the parent for a response. I wonder if we still do that with like traumatic events to some extent. And then I'm curious if there's any research like illustrating to what extent we do that. But I don't even know. Like
how would we
you'd have to ask like, did you get raped and how did your friends respond, and then how was your response after that, and then do like inventories or whatever to figure out after. But it seems like it would be pretty difficult.
Yeah. And the reality is that like what's distressing to me might not be distressing to you based on just like basic things like sensitivity to stimuli, because we know that people have different thresholds for stimuli that they can like put up with, but also like your worldview and expectations, right? Like somebody who gets sexually assaulted, but like maybe they're in kind of a world where like everyone they know has been sexually assaulted, so it's like bad, but it's not like the scariest thing. They might, even if it's a worse instance where when we look at like the actual facts of what happened, we're like, that's really bad, they might feel less about it than somebody who experienced a way less situation, but it's so outside of like their worldview of what should occur in their life that like the second person is actually like more psychologically distressed over it.
Yeah, that's kind of like in a paradoxical sense. I think that was one of the topics that me and Ayla hit on, where it was like, is it possible maybe that living in like a worse type of environment makes you less likely to be traumatized because your expectations are so much different? So things like, think like spousal rape, right? Like if that's just your society and it happens, then I guess like in your head you kind of like, this is your duty as a wife, and like I guess it kind of sucks, but like this is kind of what's to be expected, what happens. And as long as it's like the expectation, you don't have the same like, I guess like cognitive like fissure of like, why did this person do this to me? I don't know why this is happening, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, maybe that, I don't know, but
yeah, I mean, it's hard to know because, I mean, we do have data that suggests at least like people who have experienced early on people who have experienced trauma are more likely to develop like things like PTSD later, right? Like there's kind of this correlation of mapping on of like, if you have one mental health problem, you're more likely to have any other mental health problem. And so, it's like, does a tough life build resilience? It seems like in some people it specifically does, right? Like 25%. The problem is that like it seems like another 25% probably are directly harmed by the same type of experience and are left at like a higher level of risk.
And it's really hard to figure out, or maybe impossible to figure out like who's going to be what.
At least right now. I mean, with the predictive mapping that we're starting to do, I think that's a really new branch of psychology and like neuroscience that is like, if the theoretical model is correct and we can begin to predict like who is going to develop different like mental health disorders, it might revolutionize mental health treatment. But gotta kind of wait to see if it actually bears out in evidence, basically.
Yeah.
Are you pew-pewing again? Oh yeah.
Yeah, my brain is super like fizz right now. I don't know why. I can't just sit here and do
Did you end up getting an Adderall prescription?
No. I went to the dentist though.
Okay, that's nice. Squeaky clean.
Yeah.
Get those veneers on.
No, what the fuck?
Oh no, I feel like that's just like a rich. I just assume all rich people.
Oh, I hate that. The ultra white teeth shit is fucking creepy and disgusting.
Not
and
the
weird
ultra white, not like the gross veneers. I mean like the veneers that are very nice looking. They just like.
Why? That's like. Why would I get fake fucking teeth?
Well, it's not fake teeth. It's like fake plating on your teeth. I don't know. I just thought rich people do that. Okay.
Yeah, I think it looks weird. Fuck that.
Oh, I was gonna ask you something.
Oh yeah.
I got derailed by that. What was I asking? Oh, Adderall. Didn't you say that Adderall helped you like be actually like plugged in to the moment?
Yeah, it did. But like, I mean, so does like MDMA.
Okay, interesting. Basically, you just don't want like pharmaceutical interventions on your life.
I probably should. I need to stop being a bitch about it.
Have you been tested for like ADHD?
No, but I feel like the Adderall experience probably means I'm probably pretty super fucking ADHD'd.
Possibly. I mean, anyone who takes Adderall at a small enough dosage is going to be more focused and like more like honed
I don't know if
in
I was
on
focused. I felt very calm, and it was a really, or I think it was a decently high dose. I took 30 milligrams of the Adderall XR shit, and I was like the chillest I've ever been in my entire life for like a whole day. And I've heard that if your brain is like super fucking weird or whatever, that like, of course. I don't give a fuck, dude. I fucking crush this kid. It doesn't even fucking matter. Okay.
So,
that like if your brain is like naturally like really fucked on these like neurochemicals, that like that even high doses of Adderall will just like chill you the fuck out.
Yeah. So I spoke to the world-leading expert in ADHD research the other day, Stephen Fairwin.
Okay.
And you know what he said about behavioral treatments for ADHD?
Don't do them.
They're almost completely, no, they're just mostly completely ineffective. That like medication for ADHD people is pretty similar to like glasses for like nearsighted people. There's one thing that he said of basically where they like magnetically stimulate cranial nerve 5, which is like in your temple basically. And that is seeming to alleviate some ADHD symptoms without like medication. But for the most part, the main thing that's going to like make a major difference, not that I'm like diagnosing you or anything like that, but is still ADHD medication.
Okay.
You're like an old boomer who's just been like blind for 20 years and refuses to go get glasses.
Maybe. What if it's like, have you ever seen House?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What if it's lupus?
Yeah. Well, no. You know, House needs to be like miserable in order to be like a good doctor. Maybe I need to be ADHD in order to be focused enough to do my stream.
Yeah,
shit,
if you don't test it, you'll never know. Like, why don't you just do like a week, do like a little experiment? Do it for a week, and then if you don't like it, like the reality with ADHD medication is you could go off of it. Like, talk to your doctor, and I'm sure that they can be like, yeah, let's try it for like 7 days, and then if you're not comfortable, come back, we'll chat about it, and then go on from there. And to be clear, that is what Stephen Fairwin, world-leading research psychologist, said, not me. So, just.
Okay, let's say I actually want to do this. What is it? How do I even make an appointment? I don't have a doctor or anything. What is that? Do I just talk to a hospital and I say I need drugs, or what? How do I even get that set up? Like, what's the process?
Okay, so you should definitely try to get like a GP.
Fuck
the
that.
main thing is
I
you're
move
gonna
like every year. I don't have time for that bullshit.
Okay, fuck's sakes. Your actual boomer energy right now. Where you're like, I'll see next year. Okay, psychiatrist. What you need to do is see a psychiatrist.
Jesus.
So you just need to see a GP to get referred to a psychiatrist.
Oh my God.
They will do some of the testing for you. Or
can any
you can
GP refer you? Like, if I've got like one in my audience, could they just like refer me?
If they want to, I think so, yeah. You'll have to ask them. I'm not a GP. You can also, if you want to just get the testing and you want to pay out of pocket, you can pay like a neuropsychologist to do a full gambit of like cognitive assessments, which is kind of the best way that we do diagnostics for ADHD right now. They'll test you for things like inhibition and IQ and stuff like that.
Jesus. What if my IQ is like 103?
Well,
I don't think I couldn't handle myself.
If you have actual ADHD, your processing speed and your working memory will be like usually 1 to 2 standard deviations below every other indus, and then they won't
so I'm
actually.
a retard, is what you're saying.
No, they don't. They technically are not allowed to give you an IQ if
because it would be so low, they would induce suicidal ideation.
So low,
yeah,
yes,
okay.
exactly.
Gotcha.
So if they see that pattern, and then when they do like, they might do like a WEPC or like NEPC or something like that, and it'll test for like a bunch of stuff like executive functioning. Big science words. They'll do a bunch of testing.
I know what
to
executive
see kind
function is, thank you. But okay.
Okay. They're going to do things like testing like different parts of your brain to see kind of how they're functioning and operating and working together. If you like really suck at inhibition, for example, that's a pretty strong indication. Plus the IQ scores of like the depressed 2 indices that like ADHD might be at play. They're going to ask you like environmental measures like, do you feel this way everywhere? And your answer is going to be yes, I'm assuming.
Whatever gets me the drugs.
Based on my exposure to you, the answer seems to be strongly yes, Mr. I'm on my phone while I'm out with frenzies.
Good. They should be more entertaining. It's not my fault.
Why don't you entertain them?
I do that on stream. I get paid for that. I'm not doing that shit for free.
Oh, yes. Famous streamer. Entertain me, plebs. I'm off time.
True, exactly.
Yep. So they'll do a bunch of testing. From that, they'll be able to diagnose you. If you get a proper diagnosis, you could basically go back to a doctor, and they'll probably just prescribe you. To be honest, there's a good chance you'll find a doctor who will just give you drugs if you want it, really.
Because I'm famous?
But that's not... No, because... no. Yeah, because you're famous, and they really want to entertain you. But that would be like the correct way to go about it, if you want to be dotting your I's and crossing your T's.
Okay. Wait, hold on. So I would just like Google like local psychiatrist.
Yeah. Do you want me to like look into it a little bit and send you like a couple of like names in your area specifically?
Well, am I gonna be like unable to find like a competent? Can I just Google it? Is there like a Am I gonna get
Well,
like
it depends. Do you want to do a psychiatrist or do you want to do a neuropsychologist?
That sounds like a lot more testing.
Yeah, the neuropsych is going to take about 8 hours of testing. But then,
How are you going to send a kid with ADHD into 8 hours of testing? Are you even thinking
They'll break
about
it
what
up
you're
into
saying
2 days
right
and give you juice boxes. Okay?
Oh,
Juice
okay.
boxes, head pats, and cookies.
All right, if there's juice boxes.
Yeah. What's your favorite kind of juice?
Askanawi, is that what they're called?
That is. Never mind. I'm not gonna say it. I'm good. Good. Very good. All right. Yeah. Unless you just want to go to psychiatrist, it'll be like a much briefer conversation. And there's a chance that a psychiatrist still might send you to a neuropsychologist, but it'll depend up to the doctor.
Okay.
As your friend, this is what I recommend, not as anyone in the field, obviously.
Not as a psycho, meadow, whatever the fuck you
Not
claimed to be
witch.
before.
Yeah.
President
Before
Sunday
I was
finally
deep exposed.
got you. Yeah.
Yeah. The big choo-choo.
I think I'm about to lose
curious.
this game. Oh my god.
Oh, you're about to lose the pew-pew? Are you green? And yellow is who you're fighting?
I don't know. Okay. What are you super curious about?
I think that's it. Oh, I'm super curious to know if you do it. I'd be curious what your experience is on Adderall for like a week straight. Particularly for your streaming.
Why is
I'd
that?
say it would like flatten your affect, but
It would flatten my affect? Oh, but I'm so
Yeah, I was gonna
dynamic
say,
already, right?
you're already bottomed out, so I'm not too worried about that one.
Wait, what? What do you think a flat affect means?
What? Remember when we did that Twitter files thing? Not Twitter files, sorry. The Twitter trial. There we go.
Yeah.
And I got you to make that little frog face.
Okay.
Have you ever noticed that when you're on live debate panels, you maintain that face and only look completely straightforward the whole time?
Yeah, I'm trying to keep I'm trying to keep track of a lot of shit going on in my head right now. I'm trying to think of what am I saying? What is he gonna say? How is the audience interpreting what's going on? How do I feel like the debate is going right now? Do I need to change like the focus? Like I'm trying to keep a bunch of shit in mind. So I'm probably, yeah, I don't think I have time to like do like happy-go-lucky facial expressions.
I just always, are you looking at something like in your lawyer debate? Were you looking at something, or were you just like?
Oh yeah, they had
really
that debate. They had a screen in front of us with the other person on it. So we were looking at each other the whole time. It's just for some reason her setup is a little bit weird. Yeah.
That's kind of weird, actually. Yeah, it makes it look like because he turns at you a couple of times and you just like sit with your hands.
Yeah,
on your
but
laps,
I don't know
like,
what to.
staring straight forward with a frog face. It's so funny.
Yeah. What's wrong with your dog? What'd you do to him?
She wants supper and pets.
So you're just, oh, I'm dead.
Yeah. Dog abuser. That'll go on my CV as well.
Nice.
All right. Anything else? Anything planned? Any big trips planned now that you're back?
Oh Jesus. What is happening? Yeah, I've got like 4 fucking things coming up, but what am I gonna do about it? Yeah.
What's been your favorite place to travel to that you've gone to so far? Like, what have you enjoyed the most?
London was really cool, but it usually just comes down to like what friends are there that I can hang out with. And if there's cool people, then I tend to like that spot the most.
Oh, okay.
1, 2, 3, 1, 6. Yeah. What about you guys? Do you have anything coming up that you guys are planning on traveling for? Anything?
Probably the next one is TwitchCon. It really depends on like grad school and stuff about determining our financial situation and stuff about what we're gonna do.
Mm-hmm.
So probably October, like LA.
Did you get Nick into streaming more yet?
He's almost set up. I just gotta import his stream keys and then he's good to go.
Gotcha.
But he was going crazy helping me with the Sunday shit last week. So.
Oh, nice. Where are you at on that now?
Probably just gonna ignore, for the most part, everything at a public level, and then just kind of like monitor stuff.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, also, I guess TwitchCon is in Vegas. I'm stupid, not LA.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Which is ironic because they banned gambling, and yet TwitchCon is in fucking Vegas this year.
Don't tell train wrecks.
Doesn't even make sense to me. What the heck? But whatever. Are you gonna talk to Kidology?
Yeah, I think there's something set up on Wednesday.
Oh, sweet.
Ugh. Oh, sorry, that wasn't about her. Oh my god, they're all dead. They're all dead. Not all of them.
Get him. Pew. Pew, pew. Boom, boom. Oh, you're getting fucking clapped.
I'm fucking
dead.
I'm fucking believable.
Yeah, you should talk to Kidology, and then if you ever open your news media company, you should hire her as well.
Yeah, you think so?
Yeah, genuinely. If you want like the type of investigative work that it sounds like you've talked about wanting at your company, I feel like she would be a strong candidate.
Does she?
For sure.
What does she do actually?
She's a video essayist. Have you seen any of them?
Yeah, a little bit.
So that's what she does, I believe, full time now. But she's kind of like the true like position of like comes to her own positions almost exclusively like on the laurels of like her own work and philosophy and stuff like that. And then reports her findings as she discovers them. She's very, very nuanced, very based, very thoughtful.
Does she hate trans people?
I don't know what her opinion is on trans stuff, actually.
Ooh.
No idea.
Ooh. Does she play the Harry Potter Hogwarts game? Well, British.
Ooh, true. Are you playing?
Honest to God, I actually kind of want to out of spite, but I'm too lazy, so no.
Too lazy to play? You don't want to ride your own hippogriff?
No.
That seems like the kind of solo RPG just really feels like the type of game genre that you'd be into.
Wait, is this solo RPG? I thought it was like an MMORPG or some shit.
I'm pretty sure it says on the Steam. I'll look it up. Is it? I was told it's solo.
Oh.
Solo is Hogwarts Legacy. MMO. Nope. Does not have online or co-op.
Oh,
it's a
holy
single
shit.
player experience.
I thought it was like an MMORPG for some reason. Dude, I'm so fucking good. Oh. Interesting. Wait, why aren't you playing then?
I don't really do any games on stream.
Oh. Okay.
Wait, do I seem like the solo RPG kind of
Yeah, you seem like somebody that's like, oh yeah, I play Skyrim or something like that.
Actually, I used to play Ark a lot. That was my game.
It was Ark.
Yep.
Wait, what is
But on a like Ark Survival?
The dinosaur game.
Yeah, except I would play usually on a private server. I tried to find a couple of servers like to play on with friends, but by the time I got into Ark, the buzz around Ark had already like died. Like,
is that game dead? What's like the current player base for it? Wait, did you ever play like Rust or anything like that?
No, I'm a like cringe girl gamer in a lot of ways. Like if there isn't animals at least somewhat involved, I'm like immediately less interested. Even if it's just literally like a mount. So I think Rust has none of that. You just like kill wolves and stuff like that.
True. Damn.
Yeah.
Do you wait, what about like Minecraft? Or are there not enough animals in that for you?
No, Minecraft's just like too. I just don't like the aesthetic of it mostly. I just don't like the blocks. Just like run around being like a block person, building a block land. Okay. Yeah. And I like survival quite a bit. So like Ark 2 when it comes out, I'll definitely try to play. But there's a pretty like dedicated Ark community.
Oh my god, when it comes out, I'm gonna pay you money to I want to see you try to get like a thing landed on the moon in Kerbal Space Program 2, okay?
No,
Yeah.
I tried playing that game for like 3 days and I was like, I fucking can't.
You have to. You can do it. We believe in you.
No, I know. I probably could figure it out eventually. I cannot sink the time into it at all, especially by the time. When is it coming out?
I think next week.
Oh, fuck.
Now you have
Shit,
to.
I don't even have an excuse. Fuck. I was hoping it would come out in like September and be like, oh, I'm probably in school.
I want to make like you and President Sunday race, okay? We're going to see who's truly superior.
He's for sure going to win. He seems like he has the energy of somebody who'd be really good at Kerbal Space Program. Yeah.
When you look at somebody like that, that's kind of shitty questions to ask because you're personally involved. But I guess like, so some of the, what do you think was the, well, actually, I'm curious. What do you think was his initial problem? What do you think he was going for? Like, give me the general spirit of what do you think his problem, his issue was, or at least what he reported it to be.
So his reporting and what I think it is very different.
Sure.
He thinks he has a big issue with IQ specifically. He thinks it's misinformation. So he's concerned that I am somebody who is faking the extent of my credentials.
Wait, real quick, what do you think about IQ?
That it's real and testable. Okay. Yeah.
Gotcha.
That's like that's the actual I believe his issue with IQ is that I believe it to be a valid measure, essentially. Mm-hmm. He says of human potential. I've never said IQ is a measure of human potential. It's a measure of cognitive computational capacity. So that's what he says, but I've noticed that he only started tweeting about me after I called him a hypocrite for getting into that 13-minute conversation with you, when he wouldn't entertain degrees of separation. Mm-hmm. So I think, I don't know, that's when it all started. He never ever tweeted about me before then.
Gotcha. So you think it's just he's on a vendetta?
Seems like it. Probably feels morally justified now, as people often do, and obviously I can't see into his mind. So
mm-hmm. What do you think about
to what extent?
Brianna Wu.
I like Brianna. I'm really appreciating the bridge building arc that's occurring amongst non-rabid insane people across the political spectrum. Mm-hmm. And I think Brianna was a great example of that. I appreciate that she was able to talk with you. I think she's
Wait, did she talk with me yet? Have we done that yet?
Well, on a panel. You guys had a panel on Wick's panel where you guys talked back and forth.
Oh yeah, true. I remember. Okay, yeah. I wasn't one of them. Okay.
And I think she's really seeking nuance and reorienting particularly the left towards topics that actually matter. I think she's sick and tired of people quibbling over a 1% difference. She's more interested in greater good. She, in many ways, sees you as somebody where she's I think he's kind of an asshole. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I imagine you guys have had your issues in the past.
Yeah, I fucking hate each other. Yeah.
Yeah, but fundamentally, I think she I don't want to put words in her mouth, but I can at least respect somebody who is trying to bridge build for a greater purpose, which is let's maybe stop quibbling about fucking xenogenders or
mm-hmm.
These small little unimportant things, and let's talk about more important things, trying to get representatives, trying to get people turning out to vote, right? Trying to get people participating in politics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which I can appreciate. Why? What do you think?
I truly don't know. The person that's on the panels and everything is really, 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 really cool.
Mm-hmm.
She's doing a lot of research, background stuff, coming into conversations. She seems to be doing that virtual thing. But on Twitter, she's just she's always been well, not just on Twitter, just in the past, she's been that person that I hate that's so divisive and quibbling. So I wonder if she turned a new leaf, if something actually genuinely changed recently. Or maybe she did it a while ago and I've just seen her Twitter presence and that doesn't communicate the best type of change or something else. Or yeah, I'm really curious what happened. Because I think most people would know her as somebody that was contributing to that super toxic environment that she's now suddenly very against, which is cool. I mean, I used to, so I I'm just curious about that, I guess.
Yeah, I can't speak for her. Obviously, I don't know if there's been a shift for her, but I remember. Did you ever watch my humanizing that I did with her?
Nope.
She talked a fair bit about reflecting on Gamergate now, how many years has it been? Almost a decade. Mm-hmm. Not quite a decade since it's occurred.
Mm-hmm.
And she felt I remember saying I feel really disappointed because I think we got so caught up in unimportant things that we missed the point of what actually mattered in Gamergate, which was fair treatment and good treatment of workers, particularly female workers in gaming industries, which I thought was a very interesting reflection of hers. Yeah, I don't know. So I don't know if there's been growth. I don't know if she's changed position or if she's I've always had this position. I don't know. I try to be careful about how I view people on Twitter because, I know how you are on Twitter and I know how everyone is on Twitter.
Sure, I would say it wasn't just that she was unhinged on Twitter. It's just the stated set of beliefs seemed to be fundamentally different than what they are now. Where I remember her siding with Keffels on a bunch of things and even a while ago calling the anybody that plays that Hogwarts Legacy game, it's a test of character or whatever, and that was pretty recent. So yeah, I was just curious, I guess, where she's at in her mind.
Yeah, I think if nothing else, in my experience with her, she's always willing to be challenged and talk about opposing ideas, at least now. That has been my experience with her. Obviously, I've only known her for
like less than a year. So that's been my experience with her exclusively, is like she's been always pretty open to me disagreeing with her on, because I disagreed with her on the Hogwarts Legacy stuff, obviously. So
yeah, I mean, that seems to be the case. So hopefully that whatever it is, I guess hopefully it keeps up.
I mean, I think it's a good bridge to build. I think there's so much potential right now for bridge building. Like increasingly, like even in the Sunday situation, seeing how many people of like all sorts of political leanings. I mean, people might be like, oh, well, it was so like decisively in your favor, but it's like people are so partisan that like sometimes facts and like reality doesn't matter, right? They'll just like side with their tribe. And I was shocked to see how many people were like willing
to hate President Sunday.
Willing to hate President Sunday, or if nothing else, willing to hear me out, despite having every motivation to dislike me. Right, like I think like poly people, especially, like poly doesn't have any reason to be like even slightly warm towards me, but just like was able to watch it and like maybe like, well, poly also hates Sunday, so like maybe that's what was driving it. But I don't know. I just want more bridge building, and I don't know if it's possible, but I would like to see it. I want a day where you and Keffels are friends, and I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Well, I thought about it because now she's trying to like bridge build with me. I really don't know how I feel about everything. I feel like in a post Max Lav world, my intuition is always to like just forgive and welcome back, because it's easy to like make content and do like fun stuff again. And like me and Keffels like doing streams and like arguing and debating stuff that would be funny. It would be fun content, and it might even be like fruitful, right? There might be like good conversations and stuff that come out of that. But I wonder sometimes I let people like take advantage of me way too much. I think I'm like way too into like, I'm like a giver type person, and I have a really hard time setting boundaries. And I don't know if I should like enforce some type of like apology or something first, right? Technically, Keffels has done more harm to me than probably any other person alive, right? I mean, if I'm pinning my my Twitch ban on the outcome of our fights, right? Which I don't know is completely fair or not, but.
Has she ever released that like apology or redaction or anything like that?
No, but she stopped talking negatively about me. So rather than like push her into the limelight again by going through the court thing and risking anti-slap and all sorts of other shit, I just like let it be, because there was a lot of conversations that she was having about me on, or that was kind of coming up on Dylan's show, and she seemed like I'll say respectful in not like reopening those wounds. So I mean, technically, I guess like if that's the case, it's probably okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's hard to know, because I suspect like center, which is ironic to even call like you or I in any way center in Normieland. But I would say, I'm not sure if you'd agree, at least on the internet, I've just conceded. I'll be like, sure, I'm center left, I'm moderate left, whatever. Because on the internet, reasonably, I kind of am, because I'm just not like insanely far left.
Sure.
I feel like there's a growing interest in that. And so sometimes when people like who I know are like ideologically different than me, sometimes I like wonder in the back of my head of like, is this just like a grift to like where the viewers are now? Is there just like this sense of like a growing viewership and growing popularity of like more moderated politics and more like nuanced politics? And I'm not really sure. I mean, in your situation, it's so tricky, because I would say like you're this interesting dynamic where I'm gonna risk mind reading you, and you can tell me if I'm wrong.
Okay. You can also ask how I feel too. Like I'm pretty forthcoming, but go for it. Mind read me.
Okay. My suspicion, I guess I'm mind reading everyone around you more than I'm mind reading you specifically.
Okay.
I think you're somebody easy to misread, because you kind of do this interesting thing where the aesthetic that you communicate to people
is always way...
actually...
Sorry, God.
Yeah, I think you're getting... It's way different than kind of how you treat people, right?
Or way more hostile, yeah, for sure.
Not even hostile, because it's not really hostile anymore. I think you've tempered that a lot. To the point that, like, I suspect GGG is, like, begging for you to, like, fucking chew into somebody at some point.
No, it's a lot of my new fans... the reason why I say hostile is because I have a lot of new fans that will come on and they'll be like, bro, you're like so mean and blah, 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 blah. And I like ask people like, how long have you been watching me? I think the last guy did that too. He said he started watching me in 2022 or 2020, or not 20, I think it was 2021. But yeah, I picked up a lot of new people that have no idea like where I've come from in terms of like hostility. So even today, I think I still communicate. But I think the problem is when I'm communicating an idea to somebody, I'm like, my way of speaking, it's like very dynamic and very passionate. So if I think you did something wrong, I'm like, God, you're so dumb. Like, why the fuck would you do that? But I think people associate that type of like tone when speaking to a friend as like, okay, I hate you and it's over forever now. Yeah, I feel like I blame. I'm gonna pull a Brittany here and appeal to my my minority upbringing. But unironically, like the Cuban half of my family, like my aunt especially and my uncle, they're like, it was just so, the communication form was so fucking violent in terms of like screaming at each other, like, you fucking idiot, what the fuck. God, I wish I recorded some of those arguments with my aunt early on. But like afterwards, like we give each other hugs, like, okay, let's go get some coffee or like whatever. And like that was it. It was always that, like nothing. And these are like she would almost be crying in terms of how passionate she was in some of these arguments. Same things with my Aunt Sarah and my Grandma Cecilia too. They're like, oh, well, go on there, like screaming at each other. That's just how they communicate. But that doesn't like translate it all into, it doesn't translate at all into like the online stuff. Everybody is like very like, it's like a white middle class demeanor is expected.
Yeah, I was saying, white middle class people are very scared of raised voices. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously haven't seen like 2016 Nebraska Steve, so I haven't like, I mean, I've seen like clips of it obviously, but clips are not like the best representation of like how you generally operated.
Sure.
One thing that I think is specifically interesting about you when I'm talking about like that aesthetic piece. Sorry, Nick's just trying to get me to see something.
What I wanted you to say, was it worth it?
It was worth it.
What was it?
It was with the dog.
Oh, okay.
So the aesthetic that I'm really thinking of is, okay, this is my experience of you, and I'm curious to know what you think about my experience of you. I do my best to try to see people complexly, and I try to give people large margins of error. And the whole time I'm interacting with people, especially in person, is I'm trying to read who they are and somewhat predict what I think their needs are going to be, particularly needs that they're not going to be comfortable asking for or even like necessarily know how to ask for, because I'm always thinking about how I can like love on my friends and treat them really well, right? That's my proclivity. There are strengths and weaknesses to that.
Okay.
Your aesthetic that you communicate, it's not just an asshole anymore. There's that cold piece, but specifically, I think now especially, there's like, it sometimes feels like a disinterest. And I think people read that personally. I don't, honestly, because I try to just measure you on like the actions that you present. Right, I know you to be very generous. You've always treated me kindly. If I like have, even with the Sunday situation when I like you and I like chatted and stuff, like you were extremely like considerate of like kind of where I was landing, even though you're like, I don't know anything about the situation. I can't like, I can't weigh in any way because I need to see it, right? So you're fair without like abandoning your principles.
Yeah, because initially when that President Sunday stuff broke, Erudite was like, Steven, I need you to go DEFCON 7 on guys in vests with obnoxious accents.
Don't
you need
say
to make
that.
a hit.
Don't, please publicly don't even say
hi,
that.
President Sunday.
You're
I'm glad your next
joking.
video.
You're joking. It's a joke. That didn't happen. Holy fuck. That did not happen. But I think, like, especially when you first meet people, I think you get very interested in them because they're novel and unique and you like interesting things. And I think people expect that to maintain, which it can't because you get distracted by new shiny things, which is fair and understandable. But people, I think a lot of times take that personally. Like, I've been trying to look back at like your interactions with a whole bunch of different content creators and be like, damn, like, why did people like just assume the most malicious out of you? And possibly it was a different culture. Possibly like lefty vengeance culture was more popular back then. It's kind of dying out because they've cannibalized themselves so much. That's probably in part what's going on. But I suspect a lot of people, when they interact with you, they presume a complete lack of like care on your part. And I think a lot of people take lack of care personally.
I could kind of agree. I think one thing that I do is like, I tend to seek out what I consider to be very interesting people, and more often than not, once you kind of figure out like what's going on, it gets kind of like, okay, I understand this now. But there are some people that are exceptional there that I think I maintain high levels of interest in, but then things still get fucked. So like Max was still a very interesting character up until the very end, but I guess he still perceived that I had no care for him at all, and shit got fucked.
I think Max is probably a bit of a unique case. I could be wrong. How much does Max's situation map onto, like, for example, what happened between you and Hassan or you and Ian? Are they similar at all in like how they played out emotionally for the other people?
Oh, you want me to fucking
mind read them a little bit based on what you saw?
Yeah.
Best guess.
If I'm gonna like virtual machine other people's feelings, I need like my full brain for that. I can't do that in the middle of the game. I try to think of how they were feeling. I'm trying to think if Vosh and Hassan were similar. Firstly, I think for Hassan, I think it was ego-driven. I think he felt like very undermined by me. Probably felt like I wasn't being very considerate of how he felt about things. Probably felt like I wasn't taking into account his perspective as much as I should have been if I was a friend. I probably came off more aggressively than he would have liked, which to him communicates not friend. I'm trying to think of, what did the Irish laddie bridge break over? We already were kind of separating politically. I don't know for Ian if it was as much a feelings thing or if it was just like a kind of community thing. Like we had already split pretty hard in terms of political ideology. The Rittenhouse thing came up where he was so obviously wrong. Fuck, what was that? And then the just this is good. And then there was that debate over like living your principles, and the idea of like ever taking an optics L to destiny is like probably the worst thing like you could wish on any human being, because even if you lose debates with me, at the very least you're gonna win optically, because I'm gonna like make a child rape analogy or something, you know. So yeah, I think Vosh and Hassan were different, and then Mr. Girl, what is he doing? If I am truly to perceive Mr. Girl as a narcissist, I would say that the issues with him started when we started to have disagreements. Dumb fuck. Get absolutely shit on. This guy doesn't even belong in my game. Yeah, I think the writing was on the wall as soon as I started disagreeing with him on things.
Yeah.
But Mr. Girl's a bit different, because I think there is like truly, like I've said this before, I think he's like the only person I've truly met that like meets and exceeds that threshold for like actual narcissistic personality disorder.
What I'm curious. Remember how you said to Brittany Simon that you would trust her with your bank card?
Yeah, I wonder if I make bad decisions. I have really good feelings about, in terms of Brittany, in terms of like who I could trust. But I trust Brittany because of...
What's different?
I trust Brittany because of her personality. I trusted Max... I trust Brittany on an emotional level. I trusted Max logically, on a Machiavellian sense. Like, he'll never burn the bridge with me because I'm like his only connection to the world, right? Like, this guy, like, I have to be so valuable to him. I can't imagine he would do something that fucking stupid. From an emotional level, I don't know if there would have been as much trust.
See, that's so strange to me, because I feel like if you're understanding Max in any way, you would know that he's an extremely like emotion-driven individual. Like he thinks emotions in many ways matter more than the logic. He doesn't give a fuck about the logic. What he cares about is being like accurate to his emotionality. So in that way, like when all this shit like blew up, like, I was expecting this. Like this is exactly what I would expect from, like not precisely the way that it blew up. Like I didn't expect like the grooming, sexual cult shit allegations or whatever, but I would have expected it. Whereas like somebody like Brittany, I know Brittany will never do that to you or to anyone that she's friends with. Like no question.
I mean, I don't disagree with you, but it's very much not how I think. And so when I'm trying to like fathom other people's minds, I have to do a lot of work to like build out like. I have to do a lot of work to build everything out to like properly analyze it. Like if you like, I understand that thought process really well. I map out exactly how our relationship ended in my second conversation with Max, where I understand that sometimes people burn bridges with me, but they don't feel like they're backstabbing me. They feel like they have some kind of like moral calling to do so, and they feel like they're in the right while doing it. So of course, this is like the direct, et cetera, et cetera. Like I laid all that out like on our second talk, and we kind of like laughed it off or whatever. That's basically exactly what happened. But for me to like, I have to do a lot of work to get to that state of mind. Yeah, because it's just I don't think like that at all. That's insane to me. Yeah.
Huh. I wonder if in part because like you've kind of like again, I know I refer back to this all the time. I've never seen anybody capture you, I think, as accurately as I think anyone has, which is Dr. K. I don't know if you still agree with Dr. K, but he talked a lot about like kind of turning off the colors in other areas. And I'm not talking about like, and you're broken and hurting on the inside. I think you're just fucking fine having them off. No, I'm not. I'm really not. I believe you that you're just fine. Like, I think you could continue to exist like this with no problems. There's no like major like I'm not trying to max project and be like, there's deep core hidden trauma that if you just let it out, you know, you'll be broken. That may be true, but I think if you continue to exist in this way, you probably can maintain it long term, as far as like your well-being. But I wonder if that limits you in your capacity to like understand to some extent other people, particularly in the emotional realm, because people are like working with all of the colors that you've kind of like turned off. Like it would be hard to see a picture if like you just don't see like blue and red, right? And you're just like, nope, those two colors don't work. But everyone else is operating with the presumption that blue and red is there. And for a lot of people, I think specifically a lot of the emotions you've cut off are like, for a lot of people, some of the biggest driving reasons why they do the shit that they do.
I don't think so, actually. I understand why you would think that way, but I think that a lot of people actually have a lot of trouble like understanding other people's minds, or it's something that I run into a lot, even if they do share some of the like same foundational kind of like patterns. It feels that way, at least, like people but now I'm thinking on a political level, not a personal level. Like how can somebody be pro-life and not hate women, you know? Like that's like some people just can't even fathom that, which seems kind of silly to me. But I don't know if that's like there's other stuff going on there because of like the political shit, you know?
Sure. So what's different about Max than Brittany? Like you said, Brittany's somebody that you can like trust indefinitely. What's different beyond like their personality? Like why could you tell? What can you tell about Brittany that makes you trust her so much?
What can I tell about Brittany that makes me trust her? Well, first, let's see if this guy has upgrades. He doesn't. Okay, give me 1 second. I'm doing a thing, okay?
Actually, I'm gonna run to the washroom while you do that, so I'll be back in like 2 seconds.
Okay. Banelings are pretty late in here. Did it matter? Oh, Jesus Christ. How does he fucking do it over and over again? Give me your points. Give me your ladder points. Somebody asked Brianna about her Switch with regards to you. Who's Brianna? Oh, Brianna Wu. Oh, cute. Wow, I feel so noticed. Oof. Okay, hi, what's up?
Not much. Got an answer?
I feel like Brittany has a very, very, very high level of emotional maturity and understanding. And then maybe there's a bit of arrogance on my part that I assume that if I can connect with somebody on that level, there would be no reason for either of us to fuck with each other. Yeah, it might be that. I think I have her kind of like on a bit of a pedestal because I feel like she has a lot of emotional maturity, I guess.
And so, like, because of that, you basically, what do you expect? Like, if something comes up where you guys like disagree, you basically expect her to be able to manage that well, or like, how does that map onto you trusting her specifically? Just so I'm making sure I'm understanding.
Yeah, that we can manage a disagreement without it being the end of the fucking world, and then everything going to hell, and then like nuking everything. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think since like the Max situation specifically that it kind of like mind fucked you about like who you can trust?
No, because it was stupid. The Lav was a bit of a wild card, but I didn't know she was going to get into the streamer world. I don't think I would have picked that if I had known that she was going to be a big streamer afterwards, or like in this world. And for Max, Max was really interesting, but that was just, I projected my mind onto that because in some ways we have similar. I actually don't know if we have any similarities the more that I think about it. I think that I mistaked my ability to understand what he was saying with being similar, but I don't think we are similar almost at all, actually. I can just understand what he's saying, and I mistook that for that. But Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. So do you often mistake that, or is that just with Max where you mistook understanding what he was saying as we're akin?
I think he's interesting, and I think I'm doing a lot of work to patch up what he's saying into something that probably wasn't. I guess I was probably idealizing him quite a bit, actually. Because he'll say stuff like, for instance, like, because that's why everybody says I'm doing it out of spite. I don't give a fuck what anyone thinks. But like when I genuinely think he's a rapist. But in the past, I genuinely didn't think so. But I think it's because I was doing a lot of legwork to build out the things that he was saying, right? That like maybe there is a time where yes means no and no means yes, and like technically that is true. And like with a high level of actual empathy, not like you've got empath in your Twitter bio, you can navigate those situations. And I consider myself pretty good at navigating those situations. And he says he is, and he says most of the right words with a little bit of patchwork. And I think I was just doing a lot of work to build him out to be somebody that was more similar to me than he actually was. And then now in retrospect, I see that like, no, he's like absolutely and completely and totally different than what I thought. But like some of his stuff will look similar on the outside, but at the end of the day, it's not. Like he'll have outbursts with Shaylin. I have outbursts in my relationship when I fuck up. Not like that ever, but like my outbursts are temper, and I usually realize afterwards, like I'm in the wrong. Like I was a fucking retard, but I'm not. But he'll endlessly justify it until the day he dies. And more importantly, everyone around him has to mirror his justification. It's not enough for him to justify it to himself. He has to like be belligerent to another party until they also agree, right? So, and that's like a fundamentally different approach to humanity. But I was super blinded by that. Probably just because he was interesting and we spoke similarly, and I understood him, and I mistook that understanding for similarity. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
When because you mentioned part of what launched us into this is you talking about like not knowing if you have enough boundaries with people, and like if you're just like kind of like too soft on people and like too forgiving. Do you see that playing into your relationship with Max at all?
A little bit, maybe. Yeah, I'm actually in some ways I'm very confrontational. In other ways, interpersonally, I'm very non-confrontational. I noticed that when I was talking to that fucking David guy, that there's a lot of stuff that I know business-wise that works, and I do it because it obviously makes sense. But then when it comes to interpersonal stuff, I don't do it at all. When now I've learned from him, especially through some private stuff recently, that it's incredibly effective. I was really hesitant to contact basically an old like Twitch friend that I had, because I was like, it seems kind of impulsive, it seems a little bit pushy, like I don't think that this guy's gonna go for that. And he insisted, he's like, listen, if I'm gonna help you with anything, you have to do this. And I reached out to this guy, and I had like a 4-hour chat with him like 2 nights ago, and I was like, this is so stupid. Like I don't know why I didn't figure this out on my own. So interpersonally, I have problems. The thing with Max that I should have leaned on really hard was the community stuff was really disrespectful. Him like posting was it 700 comments in 2 months?
I'm not sure. I didn't follow that. That's insane.
I think it was. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. But like that level of like fervent like posting in my subreddit, and then like thinking that he was correct on an argument that's pretty fundamental to what I do, which is like talking to people of different political beliefs, and like trying to rub that in my face. He made a post was like, I was right about this and blah blah blah, and I'm like, damn, that's like mad disrespectful. Like a lot of people I think would permanently kick you out of a community for doing this. But like I let Forethought do his little ban, and then I so like, oh, like maybe it will probably undo in a while. But I think I should have had a personal talk with him right at that point. Like, hey, listen, like we need to have a chat with like how you're gonna function in my community.
Why didn't you?
I think I feel like it's a better private convo, because everything I say nobody understands this publicly, but I think that I'm really 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 scared about the circle jerks, about getting lost like in like too much like self-reinforcement or whatever. So I think I underplay my or I'm not as confident in my approach to some things as I should be, because I'm willing to take a step back like pretty often and like think like, okay, well maybe I am being unreasonable here, maybe this is like too much on my part or whatever, when I think I shouldn't do that all the time. I think I'm trying to get better at organizing like when can I do this and when can I not, but it's like something I've had a big problem with, I think.
What is like your order of priorities in like navigating like boundaries with relationships and stuff? Like do you think there's like a misorder of priorities, and like in many ways I could be wrong. Do you think that you prioritize like Max being really interesting, and you're like kind of also like a bit of like your personal principle of not wanting the circle jerk over things like basic expectations about like how your friends should be treating you, especially in public domains?
I think if I'm understanding your question correctly, what I tend to prioritize is just usually other people's comfort. I think that's why I do so well in the in like the sexual shit and the relationship and the hookup stuff. I have a very good understanding of like other people's comfort levels. But obviously you can go too far with that, and I think I do, and that I don't consider like my own needs a lot interpersonally. I have a really big problem with that. But then the problem is that I'll get upset. A lot of me and Melina's problems come down to this, is that I'll get upset when the other person is stepping over boundaries that I have, and then I'll throw like a huge temper tantrum over it. But it's not really fair, because I don't assert those boundaries well. And then people cross them all the time, and it's like, can I really get upset? So, yeah.
Right, and it like leaves the other person in this state of like, almost like distress, because if they can't know your boundaries, then they're constantly having to mind read. Instead.
Yeah, exactly. And then they start to feel gaslit when they have problems and shit with me. And I say, well, it's not fair because of this or that or that. And like, well, how the fuck am I supposed to know that, you know?
Yeah. Do you think that you have an issue knowing like what you need in relationship? Like what your boundaries would even need to be, or asks that you need to make?
No, I have a pretty good understanding of it. I never know if it's fair or not. Because typically when I'm asserting boundaries in a relationship, usually what the other party counters with is, it sounds like you just want to be single. So I never know like if the things that I'm asking for are too much or not.
What about like maybe we'll just focus on like Max, just because I don't want to like, or whatever one you want to focus on. But like, what made you hesitant that like your needs or like boundaries in there were like less important than like not having a circle jerk, for example? Like what happened in your mind where you're like, I don't know if it's important.
Well, because I mean, I empathize with his point of view. Like, it's gonna suck. Oh my god. It's gonna suck if you have a community that you feel is dogpiling you. You've got a guy that you consider your friend, and then, like, on top of all of this, like, it feels like, yeah, it feels like a whole community's turning on you, and that basically is being sanctioned by somebody that you thought you had like a close relationship with, basically.
Right.
Which is, from his perspective, that's essentially what happened, right?
Yeah, it's just unfortunate because. This is something that I've noticed about you. I'm curious what you think about this. You're an incredibly considerate person that I think a lot of people don't realize is considerate. Would you agree with that, or am I missing the mark?
If people have personal experience with me, they learn that very quickly. Yeah, I guess they forget sometimes, but yeah. Yeah, because it's because like we have combos with Max where he's like crying because of like how nice I've been in terms of like platforming him and everything. I think there was a time when him and Melina, I shouldn't have put my mutas over here. Him and Melina were having a really personal exchange over how I thought it was sad that he was kind of like lost in this nowhere land where none of his videos got very many views, but he's like one of the most artistic creators I've ever seen. And that was like, I thought that was really sad, and he seemed like pretty touched by that recognition. But for some reason, yeah, people throw away things in a really bizarre manner. Me and Melina both have tried to figure that out, because Melina's a pretty cool person too, but we'll have friends that like, I bet he's got mines buried over here, yeah. Oh my god. Okay, he has a lot of mines buried over here. People seem quick to like not care much about that sometimes though. I don't know why. Jesus.
Do you have any guesses as to like why? Like what causes people to like, it sounds like they very quickly go to undervaluing the gratitude that they at least previously showed the moment like some sort of tension or slight occurs.
I truly have no idea. Me and Melina have been backstabbed by so many people. But we're like probably some of the coolest people you'd ever hang out with, especially in this horrible fucking entertainment world. So I don't know what causes people to flip so hard. I really don't know. I'm not sure. But and they always come back later too, because they realize it. They're like, okay, yeah, fuck, these people all suck. Like, I don't know why we acted goofy. But then like obviously once somebody breaks that boundary, you can't really like take them back. So.
Well, can you not take them back?
It's hard to, because if they've got the propensity to fuck you over one time, I mean, they theoretically could do it again. And then it also feels different too if somebody's like crossed a certain line, like, but now they realize like, oh fuck, maybe I should have stayed friends with you guys. Like, well, fuck you.
Right. Do you, when people are like trying to come back, do you ever like make asks of like what coming back would look like?
I could, but I don't think Melina could. Because in her mind, like just having the propensity of doing some of the things that people have done, like already kind of like sullies it.
Yeah. Interesting.
1, 2, 2.
So not really sure why people backstab you. Do you guys think you get backstabbed on a higher than average amount for streamers?
I don't know, actually. That's a good question. It feels like everybody's like really snaky to everybody. So it could be like just an industry norm, and I'm just doing a bad job at like perceiving that it is. Or because it's happening to me, it feels more personal or something, maybe.
Possibly. I mean, what size do you think you would need to, somebody's platform would need to get to? Because I imagine this would be in part incentivized by like the size of the content creator. Like you and Melina both have very large platforms, so it's possible that like the platform size itself is incentivizing it. Do you think that that would be like a factor?
I don't know. When I was doing that part of my manifesto where I was like going through like things that I've done for people and then seeing how they fucked me over at the end, I was pretty surprised. Like the website thing is pretty surprising. That's pretty insane. That there's a whole industry built around like building off of a website that I kind of gave to the world for free. And every single person that uses it like wants me literally like deleted from the fucking internet and possibly killed. That's like a pretty...
It's insane. It's insane.
Yeah.
Which is why... Like, I don't know what it is. Like, I have my own theories, but I am curious about like the aesthetic that you communicate. Because I agree that you're an incredibly considerate person, but I would say most people are very emotional, right? And they care way more about the way things feel than the way things that they actually are. That would be my guess. I don't know if you would agree with that.
Yeah, probably would. Sounds pretty tippy, so I'd agree.
Tippy?
Yep, tip.
And so in the case of like why they're so willing to throw away what was is because of how things feel now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this kind of goes interpersonally. I've said this before that like I have to do, I've got to try really hard to keep in mind like certain behaviors that I can do to communicate interest to people because I tend to, through body language or whatever, I can communicate way more disinterest than I ever mean to, which is really, really, really bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, because in a lot of ways, like how you portray yourself is how people will feel about you. So if you're like communicating disinterest, then they're going to feel that you're disinterested. And most people aren't going to like extrapolate that out to like, oh, that's probably just his stuff. Like they're going to take it personally. Of being like, well, he's like super considerate of me and very generous, kind, like shares his platform. But then when they spend time together, it's just like disinterested, doesn't really seem to care, things like that.
Do you ever think about any of these things or no? Or do you do this pretty
personally?
naturally? Yeah, intuitively.
Think about which parts, like you specifically?
No, like, yeah, how often do you think about me at night? No, like communicating like interest to people or whatever.
Not as often as my mom does. Yeah, I think about the emotional aesthetic that I communicate to people a fair bit. Not as much as Nick does. I think Nick is better at navigating this more naturally because I'm pretty keenly aware of it. I just sometimes don't care. Like I sometimes will like Nick is always trying to like navigate towards like making sure that he's communicating the aesthetic that he wants people to feel because that is how he feels to some degree as well. Sometimes I'm just like too lazy essentially, like where I'm aware that if I like change my tone here or anything that it would probably get better positive outcomes and they would probably like me a fair bit more. I'm just like, I'm sorry, like if you can't take me like this, I'm too busy. I don't want it. I'm good. Is more so how I operate. But I suspect that my aesthetic that I communicate is pretty similar to how I feel about things. I have a harder time of like getting myself to feel some sort of way that I think is probably would be a better way to feel about it, if you know what I mean.
Gotcha, sure.
Does that make sense?
Do you think about what Lab said? That you're a pick-me?
Not really. I do. So one thing, not so much from Lab's critique, because Lab is saying like she's changed it now to like we're all kind of pick-me's because we're all like trying to like serve the interest of like the patriarchy.
Cringe. Yeah.
Instead, there was actually like ironically enough, a mutual friend between me and Lab as well that we talked about it, and she kind of gave me the viewpoint of like if you're communicating an aesthetic of a pick-me, even though you're not, that like really matters. But this is more like a political thing of like if my channel communicates pick-me energy, while it would be better for people to try to see me more complexly, it's not really fair to expect the average viewer who has like 2 minutes that they want to dedicate to my content to come away with a more complex view of me. I can't expect that. And so if I don't want to be communicating the energy of like I want to throw women under the bus, I need to make sure that my content is going out of its way to communicate that. Yeah.
Do you think it's possible to build things around like a clip world? like somebody might only ever see like 2 minutes of my content at any given point in time, and I need to always be prepared and expecting to like navigate that.
I suspect that's a little bit impossible. I feel like that would be too high of a standard because like you can always be clipped weird, or your clips can rub people wrong. Like when I read like the comments on my shorts, I don't give a fuck at all. Is that answering your question?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I don't worry about it. Because I'm only curious because you made the comment about like if short things on my channel or whatever can communicate pick me energy, do you just expect people to perceive you as such, basically?
Not so much shorts, more like combination of content. Like if somebody scrolls through my videos and watches like a couple of minutes and they feel like a super strong pick me energy, that would definitely be an issue. I don't think, I mean, definitely like my shorts are made by one of my editors. So, I mean, he's definitely mindful of like not making me look like a giant raging misogynist, which is good. But part of like what I'm thinking about is like the content specifically that I'm putting out. Right? Like because I'm so like masculine in a lot of like my pursuits and interests, I'm very like aggressive a lot of the time. I think I have a tendency to have a preference for masculine things. And I think the problem is that, especially in like our world, when you prefer masculine things and our entire society prefers the masculine as well, it's very easy to come to believe that the feminine is just left important.
How do you feel when women like that that one what's that red pill wifey, what's her name? It's not Allie. When she says things like my husband picked me because I like can make a sandwich well. Do you think that's true?
I think she's making mostly a joke. I think she's being like kind of like silly in that moment.
Is she?
I don't know.
It sounds like she's saying that like because she found her femininity and she picks for like masculinity and all of that. It doesn't sound like a joke. It sounds like she like feels pretty strongly about that. But I feel like she exhibits like very, very, very masculine energy. Like that would be a person that I would be really interested in.
She does. Allie is really interesting because she actually expresses hyper masculine and hyper feminine traits.
What hyper feminine traits? I'm curious what you mean by that.
She can be like incredibly soft and sweet when like moved into that space. I think she stays very like open to people's ideas and very like kind as far as like how she's listening. She's very much like when you engage with her in the right tones, she really tries to be like a yes and interlocutor versus like a no but, right? Like if you talk with her, I feel like a lot of people when I talk to is like you're running into a wall. While you're like debating, especially when you have different worldviews. Whereas for her, it feels like a lot easier and smoother. And she's always working really hard to understand you.
Yeah.
Right? And so somebody might be like, well, men can be that too. Why is that necessarily feminine? I don't fucking care. I don't know. Because that seems to be what we attribute to the feminine. Yeah, I'm gendering the trait for the sake of like purposeness. And it seems like our society genders these traits too. So in that way, I think she exudes a lot of like very feminine traits, especially like her and I actually chat a fair bit now privately as well. I think as she's gotten more comfortable with me, I see more of those traits come out. I think I'm going to mind read her now, so I could be completely wrong. But based on like her lifestyle, growing up in the military, being from a single mom, I suspect in a lot of ways, a lot of women, I kind of have this conception. I'm a woman who expresses a lot of like traditionally masculine, right? Which is why like my church, the women at church didn't like me very much.
Okay.
Disagreeable. I want to fight all the time. Very concerned about things and ideas. I find a lot of women that exhibit like high masculine traits sometimes do it because that's like their personality, but sometimes do it out of like a learned necessity. And I think Allie in many ways exhibits a lot of those like masculine traits. Some of them I think are just like inborn, like very natural to her personality, like being kind of feisty. But I think other parts of it are like learned as a way to like navigate the world as like
a woman,
a very poor single mother woman in the military specifically, who's by nature personality type like more conservative as well in like a very liberal space in school. Whereas I think like when she met her husband, from her words, it sounds like she finally felt safe enough to like let other parts of her out, which is like these more feminine parts of her. I could be completely wrong, but that's kind of like how I read her.
Do you think that I really, really, really wish you might agree or disagree with this. I really wish we had different words other than feminine or masculine, because I feel like some of these traits I think like everybody should push for, and I feel like it gives people like a really wrong idea about other traits. So something that you just said there about how she might feel or she might act in a certain way where she's like ultra leader, ultra crazy, ultra whatever, but then when there's like a more confident person around her, she kind of like chills. I feel like that's a very human response that I feel like almost everybody across gender spectrums would almost equally like gravitate towards. Okay, hold on. 1 sec. I'm about to end this kid's whole career, I think. Wait, hold on.
Pew, pew.
Yeah, fuck.
Get him.
Are we? Or am I ending my career? Jesus, are you okay?
Yeah, sorry. I banged my hand. Sorry.
Oh,
okay.
That was like a fucking gong.
Sorry. I just hit my boom arm.
Oh, okay. I'm so sorry. Okay. I won't queue another game after this. Okay, sorry. One of the things that people talk about a lot, this gets gendered a ton. Dude, Ultralists are actually a dog shit unit. If you ever play this game, don't ever build these stupid fucking things. They're just actually like, they're just meme units, and they're so fucking bad. And people are like, oh, Ultras.
How old is this game? Isn't this a really old game? This was like your career starter game, isn't it?
Yeah, it was.
StarCraft?
Yeah.
Oof. How the mighty have fallen. Diamond?
Chill, I'm fucking... First of all, I haven't played this game in a long time, okay? This guy's been practicing...
a long time, Mom. Sorry.
This guy's been playing for so long, and now he's getting stomped by me, okay? I'm coming back, and I'm just tearing this guy apart, okay.
Bruh, weren't you like a professional, like world class StarCraft player?
That's true. Yeah, don't forget it. Okay.
It's like a bike.
Okay, I need to keep expanding. People talk about. I hear this a lot, and Allie was saying it too, and I'd be interested pushing her on it. What her? Oh, here's the one thing I actually appreciate on her. I don't know. I don't think I've ever met anybody that is as eager and willing to entertain an idea that they hadn't heard before. She does that exceedingly well. It almost feels bad faith. It almost throws me off. Like I'll say something and she'll like immediately like, I didn't consider that. You might be right about that. And I'm like, that's like insane to me. Like I don't think I've ever met another person that fucking does that. I'm glad too, because like when we started talking, she was just saying a bunch of stuff that I considered ultra wild, and I was like, okay, I was just like sitting there listening, like, this is fucking stupid, whatever. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to try and we'll see if we can make this a good conversation. And then I engaged like with a lot more purpose. And it was actually probably one of the better conversations I had. Yeah, so that was...
She's the most ultra good faith person I think I've basically ever met on the internet thus far. Like, talking to her is very akin actually to talking to you, in that like, when I get the... You're always good faith. I'm not going to say... I was about to say we agree with everything. But even when I listen to you talk to people that you really disagree with, you go exceptionally out of your way to make sure that you're understanding them.
I try to.
In her way, she's so interesting because she's so interested in learning. And she's incredibly like complimentary. Like it really feels like you're talking with a friend who's just like has her worldview, is willing to say what like she thinks is true, but is so willing to hear what you have to say. And that to me is like... I've been trying to capture like feminine interlocution debating style, because I think it's possible. Everyone keeps telling me it's not possible. I think it is. Like it's something that feels more feminine, that I think a lot of women, especially that have like, because women are socialized to be more feminine typically, will more naturally fall into and be comfortable in.
Oh.
And
Go ahead. I'm so sorry. I just remember what I was going to say before. I shouldn't have said that one.
I was just going to say, I feel like Allie is teaching me a lot about what that could possibly look like.
So I was what I meant before. Okay, so back up. Fresh and Fit say this a lot. A lot of red pillars say this. Allie says this, that men are like leaders. Men gravitate towards leadership, the hierarchy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the reality is that the vast majority of men are followers and will always be followers. So I wonder how they square that away in their mind. And I feel like having a strong leader, having a good leader, is something that women absolutely gravitate towards, but men absolutely gravitate towards it as well. I remember there's like, it sounds so stupid, but like there's like a change in energy in a workforce. If anybody's ever worked, especially in kitchens, when you have a guy or girl that shows up, they can take charge of a situation, like everybody becomes a better person, men and women. And it's not like there's like all these men are vying for leadership positions. Because if I take the fresh and fit model, I would expect like every man is constantly fighting to be the leader, but that's not true. I think a lot of men enjoy following. And when a good leader, when a good cook steps up and is like directing like a kitchen, like a line, everybody falls in line and everybody's like working well. Yeah, I think I was going back to that. I hate that term of like masculine versus feminine traits because there are some masculine traits that like, there are things like confidence, like everybody can be confident and should aspire to the highest levels of confidence, men and women. And then there are things where people say, oh, like leadership is like a male thing. It's like, I think that's a really, really rare thing between men and women. I don't like that that's gendered at all. Yeah, I don't know.
Do you think people, I'm not sure if you would find this to be like a salient idea, but do you think that it's possible that a zeitgeist could be formed within our culture that says like men and women should strive to have masculine and feminine features, like each of them? And just to be clear, not all traits that are good are masculine or feminine, right? Some traits that I view as like good, like competence, is more of a marker of maturity, right? It has nothing to do with whether you're like feminine or masculine. It's about like being mature just in general. Do you think that would ever like catch on, or do you think like because masculine maps on so closely to man and feminine so closely to women that like people will always like, women are like, I don't want to be a man, I don't want to be masculine?
I don't even know if they map on accurately. It's hard to say because of how people use the things. Like I feel like when I'm talking to red pillars, okay, I'm retreading some ground, but I don't think I've talked to you about these things before, so bear with me, chat. Something that I'll notice is, or you can tell me if I ever explain this to you and you're going to tell me to fuck off, is when we talk about like masculine versus feminine traits, masculine traits are leader, provider, defender, honorable, warrior, stands up for what's right, strong, strength. Like these are like the male collage of traits. And then the female collage of traits is like can have kids and is nurturing, I guess. And then when we go to think of like the negative traits now on the feminine side, like every single thing a guy does poorly is like a feminine trait. So like when a guy is overly emotional, that's called feminine. And I don't think that maps onto reality at all. So for instance, like men are very quick to violence compared to women, right? Like if you wanted to discriminate against one category to get rid of all violent crime in the world, it would be men. And it would like it's like 98% of offenders are men. But that's like, but the way that they square that is they say that anger isn't an emotion, like feminine emotions are emotions or whatever, which is like ridiculous. So yeah, I don't know. I have that hard time in the red pill world of like gendering the masculine and feminine traits because truly all the female ones suck. And the ones that are good, they absolutely are. In their world,
Can I pause you for 2 seconds?
Go for
I
it.
guess President Sunday is trying to like flag me for having one. I'm just gonna turn off my stream because I can't turn off one without the other. So I'm just gonna raid out, get my Twitch turned off, and then delete the VOD so that he doesn't fucking flag me. Okay, I'm still here, but I'm just gonna turn off my stream.
Okay.
So
delete the VOD.
Okay. Yeah, somebody just sent me a message. I hate people. Okay, I think saying something like the feminine traits are all just like lame is the problem with society. Like this is the actual final frontier of feminism, in my viewpoint. Like I think if feminism is doing anything, what it needs to do is help people realize that like feminine traits are just as respect worthy. We just have to look at what they are and see how they're utilizable, right? Like being understanding, like really trying to understand another person is fundamental to good conversation, because if you cannot understand them, you'll never talk about the same shit. It'll be unironically, not to make a dig, it'll be like when you say something and then Pearl just responds with like an actual like unrelated comment. It'd be like, yeah, but this other thing. And it's like, these things don't matter. Like just try to understand. Like we can't even talk on the same playing field if both parties aren't attempting to understand each other a little bit.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Wait, what was that in response to?
Well, you said that the feminine traits are all like, you're very derisive about it. I don't want to misquote you.
Well, because in terms of like what gets attributed to, like, here's the thing, right? First of all, if you're rolling a character select, and given what we exist in today for masculine and feminine traits, 99% of people choose masculine traits. They're just better. They're cooler. It's more fun. You've got more agency. You've got more autonomy. You've got like a higher ceiling for cool things you can do. And the feminine traits are like if you want to roll support class and like have kids.
Bro.
And I think for evidence of that, I think that as women have unlocked more masculine traits through reproduction and education, they have opted for the more masculine lifestyle. Like, 100 years ago, you ask a woman like, hey, like, by the time you're 20, how many kids do you want? And then today it's like, I don't know if I want kids before I'm 30, because like, why the fuck would I give up my fucking life for children? I think it's a hard, I feel like the masculine traits are just so cool.
Yeah, they are really cool. The issue is that like, men are really bad at being happy. The masculine traits are pretty bad at it. So like I like both. I think traits in both are great. But I think we really underestimate, like people will always laugh at me when I like characterize like femininity. And like in my experience of trying to like, as a woman with mommy issues and not particularly like inclined towards femininity myself, as I'm trying to like rediscover it in myself, I'm realizing how much more intensely like happier I am and how much more in the moment I can be, and that like it's like a deeply grass touching experience of just like finding joy. And people will like roll their eyes at me like, oh, you're just finding joy. And I'm like, I don't even know how I care about life if I wake up and like the people that I love aren't there. Like the best moment of my fucking life, I always say this on stream, people eye roll, is like when I wake up in the morning and I have like Nick like pressed up against me on one side, and then my dog will wake up and like flop her head on my chest, and so I'm just getting like spooned by like two creatures that I love more than anything else in the world. And it's simple and it's stupid and it doesn't matter, and it is like in many ways it's the reason that I breathe. Like it's the things that we pursue, right? It's the reason why like when you hold your child and they like laugh and it's stupid and it doesn't matter and it means everything. I think the problem with society is that we've like forgotten what is good about the feminine, because the masculine builds like empires and allows you to do so many cool things, and that's base, and I love that.
Yeah, but then the question I'm always gonna have is like, is any of that even feminine? Like if we think about things like meditation, don't we think of like men? Don't we think of like Buddha and Buddhism and the Zen monks and like all of that? Like it feels like for any cool trait that is feminine, it's gonna get like subsumed by the masculine, and we all just expect that to happen. So like if I were to say like, who should be cooking in a household? Everyone's gonna say that's the woman's job. And then I would say, when you go to a restaurant, who should all the line cooks be? Okay, well, if it's for a job, that's got to be men, right? When it is, and for line cooking, it's all men. So it feels like the masculine bubble is so fucking huge, and the feminine like roles are so fucking small. Like I agree with you that there are some things that should be considered like traditionally feminine that like both sides should explore. But one of the kind of like ideas that I've been rolling with recently, I don't know if it'll stick or if it's still congealing, is when I think of like the difficulties between men and women, one of the things that I think that's happened largely over the past like I guess like 30, 40, 50 years is women have done a really good job they've maintained like all of the traditional like feminine training in the household in terms of like emotionality, in terms of like forming friendships and bonds, but they've done a really good job at stepping into the masculine role, and they've gotten like all of that. They're kicking our ass in school. They might end up just being better students than us. They're starting to do really good in the workplace. In some ways they communicate with people forward facing better than us. And for men like did the masculine thing of like working, but they haven't embraced any of the feminine shit at all. And they're just like fucked. So then I think in terms of like value propositions for relationships, if women have completely taken over the masculine part, and by that I just mean like having jobs, and men are like, I have no idea what I can even offer you in a relationship, because I think that is a question that you have to ask, right? Like what can like a man offer a woman in a relationship? And if it's not just a paycheck anymore, and there's like no answer there, it feels like that unwillingness to even explore like feminine traits because of the way that they get labeled in like red pill society is like so fucked. I should clarify, I guess, because I don't want to talk past each other. If we're looking at like feminine and masculinity as like this yin and yang where we're being fair to both sides, I do agree that that's something that both sides need to explore. But whenever people talk about feminine traits, especially men, they're so dog shit. They're such dog shit traits, and every negative aspect of a man is applied to feminine traits, and it's just so stupid, I think.
I think it's because like our society just decided to say that everything that was good and useful is masculine.
Yes.
And like that's just stupid.
Yeah.
That's not true, right? Like, yeah, like cooking is a skill, right? So like saying like men tend to be like maximally, like men will often pursue like maximal levels of competence. That's true, but that's because in many ways like the masculine is fixated on things, and when it comes to skills, men are going to be more often fixated on that. And men are also like biologically proclaimed to like having slightly more extremes on either end, just because of your guys' like stupid why, and other factors as well. And so it's like, yeah, in the case of competence, yes, we'll often see at like the highest levels that like men often outcompete. But that's not because like being competent is the best thing in the world. Like having somebody like the problem is that we've like turned the feminine things into just like silly little things. And yet we're like wondering why we have like a mental health epidemic. And we're like wondering why like men and women are lost and like there's like shells of masculinity and femininity. Like organizing people, recognizing people's strengths and weaknesses, that is for sure feminine. It's deeply intrinsic to running a successful company, which is organizing people and knowing who should go where. This is a feminine thing, but we've just started to pretend that it's a masculine thing because men often end up in leadership business type roles because they have the time and like willingness to like fixate on it. But I would say it seems to me, it emerges more as like a feminine trait. And so we shouldn't just dismiss it. What we have to do is like stop saying everything that's good is masculine. It's not.
Yeah, I don't know what, like when I think of and it's so hard to, because I start to doubt the experience both sexually and romantically of a lot of the red pill people, especially as more information gets leaked about them, like that fucking Donovan loser that I hope doesn't pussy out of our conversation on I think the 31st or whatever. Whatever that happens. He got like conned by like a 19-year-old when he was 31 years old. He's the worst. And he's like, he married a single mom after he constantly tells his audience you never marry single moms, et cetera, et cetera. He's an actual garbage human being. He's a piece of shit. But like if you watch red pill streams, they give you the best advice to never be a good relationship partner. Like it is like a step-by-step guide to like how can you be the worst partner ever and never be in a good relationship. But like so many young men buy into it. And it's hard because anytime you angle something even a little bit differently, like people like lose their fucking mind. If I wasn't so late, I'm gonna buy Adderall. I'm gonna write stuff down one day. I swear. There are so many things that red pillars say that like men should never do, and like in my mind, these are like the most manipulative tactics to like get somebody to like you. Like I gave the example before with like don't ever open up emotionally to a woman, and it's like showing vulnerability in a manipulative way is one of the best ways to get somebody obsessed with you for the rest of their lives. And they're saying like if you show any vulnerability, you're gone. Or like in order to get a woman, you need to be hyper masculine. And it's like if I meet a woman for the first time, one of the easiest ways to get her to be obsessed with me is to like fall in love with her pet. Or like a child or like a friend. Like if you get inside a girl's house and you're like holding their cat and like petting, like, oh, look at your little cat. Like they'll love you forever. Like it's over. Yeah.
Yes. Because this is the key. This is what so much of the red pill, in my mind, obviously, is missing, which is that the best leaders oftentimes are men. A lot of times men are extreme and rise to the top. But these men always embody some elements of femininity. They must. They must. Because all of the greatest men that we look at historically and everything, all of the greatest women occupy both of these things. And so the outright dismissal of femininity and like saying that it's like silly, I think is like unironically leading to like why like anxiety and mental health is at like an all-time high. Nobody can understand each other because it's like all of these feminine traits about like community building and cohesion and like finding bridges along people and understanding and trying to build each other up. Like these are all feminine traits and there's no one in the world who can convince me that they're not important.
Yeah.
Right? They are important. They're deeply valuable. And we can't just steal these qualities from femininity and just call them masculinity. And I think a lot of times the red pill is they won't call those masculine. They agree that they're not masculine. The problem is that they're so like fragile in their masculinity that they're afraid to even like touch anything that appears possibly feminine because they don't want to get called like gay or like something like that, which is like so pathetic. Like they have this shell of masculinity.
Yeah, and the type of like ultra masculinity that they advocate for is like it works if you're like a top 1%. Like if you want to be hyper masculine, fine, but you have to be like an actual Giga Chad. You need to be pulling like, depending on the city you live in, 150K, a year or more. Like for the average guy, like they're not. This ain't it. Like being the ultra hyper masculine figure, unless you're literally top 1%, that's just not going to work for the average dude. Because like women don't. Because like an average masculine guy has already been achieved, I think, by like the average woman, right? Because an average masculine guy is a guy that can earn a paycheck, and women can do that now. So it's not enough anymore, you know.
Do you think that competence is a masculine or feminine trait, or do you see it as something else?
There's a lot of things that I believe that descriptively they're true, but they're just disappointing to me. I think competency can be both, but I think that women tend to appreciate it more and men just don't give a fuck because they're looking for bang-made children. I think most red pillars should just embrace their inner pedophilia and just find like children to fucking marry because it feels like that's what they're asking for.
True.
Because they want somebody that's young, lied, virgin, trainable, like, and it's like, bro, you're just looking for like a 12-year-old.
Wax to the max.
Yeah. So Yeah, I don't know. So yeah, I mean, like, oh god, yeah, that's another argument we got into. Like, I think women love to see men that are passionate and competent at something. Like, even if it's just something as stupid as like building models or whatever, I think most women are super keyed into that. I think that's why, oh my god, and if it translates to anything the woman can understand, it's like it's another million level like seduction technique. Like, if I get like in a room with a woman and she's like, oh, can you play piano or whatever? Like, I'm in. Whatever's happening that night, I'm fucking this person a million times. Because if I can play piano for somebody, it's like, oh, you're passionate about something, you're competent or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And women love to see that. But I feel like a lot of men don't give a fuck at all. They just want bang maids that are as young and bodiless as possible.
Yeah, I guess in my view, like, so I would say competence is non-gendered, right? And it's actually like my good tell of like how sexist I think somebody might be is if they're like, oh, well, obviously competence is masculine. And I'm like, that's not self-evident. Like,
but when you say it's non-gendered, it feels like a lot of men, like, seriously, like, just don't care about any competence that a woman will have. Like, how many times have you heard Myron on Fresh and Fit say, like, guys don't care what you've done. Guys don't care about your achievements. Guys don't care about any of that.
I think that's because, like, I think I'm gonna be honest. I think a lot of these men aren't looking for mature women. They're looking for girls, like kind of like we said. And I think competence is in many ways a marker of maturity, right? The issue is that like for a lot of women, the competence that they're going to be built in are things that like, to be honest, these guys do value. They're just not measurable with a dollar amount, right? So like women that are highly competent at like taking care of others, supporting other people, and like building like community. There's women who are incredibly skilled at that, incredibly skilled. But we don't really put a dollar sign on it. We don't really know how to measure it. But I'm going to guess that guys actually really do value this, right? Guys value a woman who make them feel like loved and supported. It's just like a different type of competence. Whereas women are looking for competence that are oftentimes like markers of stability, right? Can this guy, if I get a baby, if I get pregnant and my pregnancy is fucking awful and I can't work for like 9 months to like a year and a half straight, can he pick up the slack? Can he actually provide and take care of me and my child? And so like, I feel like I feel like competence must be non-gendered, because in many ways, like the most masculine men are in jail. That's where they are. The hyper masculine, where they only have masculine traits. Most of them are in jail.
Yeah.
Like that's where like ultimate maximal masculinity often ends you.
True. Or dead. Yeah.
Or dead. Yeah.
So this is like a character arc that it sounds like you went through this a little bit. I'm not sure. I've seen a lot of women go through this where women will grow up and they're kind of tomboyish, and then they want to be better as people, and so they become hyper masculine and almost like becoming male. And then at some point they turn around and they're like, well, maybe I can embody these good traits but still be like a woman. Somebody wrote a really good comment in chat, I think, that somebody said, oddly, I think, you know Sailor Moon, right?
Sailor Moon, yeah.
Yeah, they said, oddly, I think Sailor Moon versus Captain Marvel is a good example of a strong female with cool feminine traits like compassion, emotional nurturing, versus Captain Marvel, who is stoic, solitary, and calculating. I think it's an interesting comparison because Sailor Moon is obviously very feminine, very much a woman, but is still like a superhero and all of that. Whereas Captain Marvel is almost like a stand-in for a man, right?
She's a toxic man in many ways, specifically, right?
Yeah, arrogant.
I actually like comparing Wonder Woman to, because they're in kind of a similar universe at least. Like Wonder Woman is in many ways kind of like, especially first movie of Wonder Woman of the recent diatribe, not the second, right? She's incredibly nurturing. She cares like about like every kid that she comes across, but she's also incredibly like strong. And I think like, yeah, in a lot of ways, like this is kind of like the criticism that I've had of kind of like the women's movement is it feels like, this is what I say, like the women's movement feels like it was spearheaded by a lot of women that were like me, which like, I really do have a personality that is just naturally driven towards like masculinity. Like I just am a lot more disagreeable in general. I'm much more interested in things. I dominantly just like want to like build an empire and control the world, right? Like I'm very in that type, that archetype. The issue is that a lot of the women's movements I appreciate because they made space for me to exist in a world where only masculine things really mattered, and they opened up the gateway for women to explore that, right? The issue is that they forgot that the feminine mattered the whole time, and they left behind in a lot of ways like all of the other women. And so like I kind of had that experience. Like I was like definitely a tomboy. I just don't know if I fully, like in my case specifically, I just didn't really grow out of it. Like I'm not afraid of dresses anymore.
Yeah, or I feel like you you have embraced like the whole makeup and everything for depending on whatever you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, for like aesthetic purposes and stuff like that, and like I like looking good, but yeah, there's definitely like this. I think a lot of women feel this desire to map into masculinity because their society keeps telling everyone that masculine traits are the best thing and the most important thing, which is why a bunch of girls just like convince themselves into that because they want to compete. And there's an understanding to that. But my question is, can we allow these women to like pursue competence without socially engineering them into like masculinity? Because I don't want more Captain Marvels. I want more Wonder Womans.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess in my mind, you either have to redefine the feminine gender or the feminine masculine traits, or we have to just toss the terminology. I guess in my mind, the reason why I'd want to toss it is because I just feel like it's so fucking toxic at this point. It's like the word feminism. I'll never call myself a feminist on a panel. Like, I don't even call myself a progressive sometimes because it's like the words are so fucking like destroyed. Yeah.
The issue is like what words would replace them that would map onto culture very well.
I'd probably just start saying like traits. I would just say the things like, oh yeah, we should all strive to be like competent. We should all strive for like a level of strength. We should all strive for these types of like to be providers and everything, and in different ways.
Yeah, the issue is that like in many ways, like kind of how we talked about like how the gender norms are like kind of emergent from like just realities of both survivalship and biology. This is why I think like we can't get away from these terms. We never will, because if you start saying just traits like it's good to be kind, it's good to be like strong and brave. The problem is that we're going to start seeing these traits mapping onto groups more consistently, more often, and our brains are extremely like patterns, and so we're going to start to categorize those in our minds. And I mean, I can
kind of agree with you there that it'll happen, but I think it'll happen way less than what we think. Like, nobody thought that women would perform this well in school. That's like impossible. Maybe on like girly things like gender studies or whatever they think, but like I'm pretty sure women are starting to outperform men like in areas like related to math. At least at the high school level, which is like, that's like women don't do math, right? Like that was like the thought. And I feel like if women can do a lot of things that were traditionally like just the domain of man, right? Like AI is coming after humanity, and now women are coming after, men. We're all like eating each other, I guess. I feel like that overjudging of everything, it leads people down weird roads sometimes that I guess like either people put themselves into boxes or we put other people into boxes, and it gives us a poor perception of the world. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe who the fuck knows here.
I feel like that's why it's important to get like, this is why like narratives and archetypes matter so much to me, because like I don't know if we ever get away from them, because like feminine and masculine seem to emerge universally in cultures like pretty consistently. And any like good anthropologist, as Ali I'm sure is thinking right now, would point out that like other cultures do have like different types of genders that emerge as well, like a masculine man, a feminine man.
It's usually binary. I will say the one important caveat though, and this is like I know everybody feels like, oh, this is the craziest time in the world. I will say that like the two huge things that are unique today that seem to be radically changing the things are, one is women working, and not just like at the home, but having real jobs. And two is access to reproductive health. And I think that is like dramatically altering how women engage with the world. So like we could say historically, like, oh, women always do these things. I think a lot of that was tied into not being able to work and having to have kids at like early ages and just like dealing with that.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I guess what I want to see, because I don't know if our culture will ever abandon these terms, or at least maybe these terms will abandon. I don't know if these constructs or categories will be abandoned. I want to see like characters emerge that embody the archetypes that we want, that are more like, I want more Wonder Woman stories. I want stories of women being like strong and having lots of masculine traits that are still like soft and caring, so that there's like these types of characters. And I want the same thing. I want to look at like male leaders who, there's tons of historical examples of this, but they were incredibly strong and brave, but they cared about like their brothers in arms, and they like were invested in like the growth of like their troops and stuff like that. These are the types of heroes that we like need to find a way to appeal to like kids more, because these are good embodiments of good people, right? Like I don't want shallow heroes.
Something that I'm curious about. What actually? Wait, hold on. Let me grab something real quick. I want you to think about this for a second, because there's another idea. I've had random new ideas. Can you think about like what the most popular movies are for women that feature like women? I'm curious what you think the answer to that is. I'll be right back 1 second.
How old are both of us? I am 29 and Steven is 32 to 4.
What's 32 to 4?
I don't know. Are you 32 or 34?
Me? Oh, 34. Okay.
Right in the range.
Yeah, what do you think the answer to that is?
I'm going to suspect it's like, are we including like rom-coms, like popular movies that? Yeah, it's probably a rom-com. Something like that.
Here's something that I thought was interesting. When we look at the types of movies traditionally that boys have to model themselves after, that they aspire to be, the victory condition oftentimes is like grandiose. It's like winning wars, being superheroes, conquering the planet, defeating the biggest evil villain ever. It's stuff that, like, in an abstract sense, there's like second order and third order like traits that we maybe can embody. Like Spider-Man learns, coming of age. As you get older, you get more responsibility. But the lessons are kind of hard to apply directly to life unless you think about it quite a bit. But but for women, I wonder if like their movies have more achievable ends, where it's like, oh, like drama in a male movie is killing the villain, and drama in a female movie, I think, tends to be overcoming some like internal problem that most people have, women and men, right? Getting over like an ex, or getting over yourself, or getting out of the way of your own, like stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think about that?
I would definitely agree that those are probably like the main arc. Like, yeah, for sure, most boys' movies that they like are heroes, rah rah rah, beat up bad guys, save the world. Whereas like a lot of popular ones is just like, I'm insecure. A lot of it though isn't just like getting over internal struggles. A lot of it is like, I'm insecure and a guy rescues me. There's like a lot of rom-com themes, and that's starting to shift in like the way that we're writing things. But especially when I grew up, most of the rom-coms were like, I'm an insecure girl who doesn't know how beautiful she is, but she's actually incredibly gorgeous without makeup on, and she's always rejected by her friends and everyone until this perfect jock comes along and sees her and then rescues her from essentially rescues her from the anxiety and existential fear of like nobody valuing her.
Yeah, it happens. But I mean, there were movies like Legally Blonde and stuff where I think, wasn't that her figuring stuff out? Yeah.
Right. Just like there are hero stories for young men that, yeah, the crux is oftentimes like saving the world, but in the process of it, a large portion of it is like overcoming self, right? Right, like Iron Man is like, yeah, a lot of the stories about him like saving the world, but a large portion of it is like him learning how to like have humanity and how to like put others before himself. Just like I think Harry Potter is like, I suspect it's got a larger female fan base than male. I'm not totally sure though. Do you know?
I don't know, but have you read all of Harry Potter?
No, my parents told me it was evil when I was growing up. So
I stan Harry Potter hardcore. I love it, and it was like a childhood thing. But I actually really didn't like the character development of Harry Potter, because there was a thing that happened where it feels like Harry matures a lot towards the end of a book, and then it resets at the start of the next book, and that actually triggered the fuck out of me. I noticed that even growing up reading, where I'm on like book 4, 5, or 6, and I'm like, how are you still acting like a little kid at the beginning of the book? I think in the beginning of book 7, they're like hunting Horcruxes or whatever, and they're like crying about like how boring it is. And I'm like, bro, you guys have like, Harry, you killed like a giant basilisk when you were like fucking 2 years old. You're like, how the fuck are you guys bored and angsty? And that reset of like the character development at the start of every book actually drove me fucking crazy. But yeah, I don't know if it's more masculine or feminine, but yeah, go on.
See, what's interesting to me is like, I know a lot of women who love like Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings, and like young adult fiction is like exploding. Like Twilight series. So like almost everything that women often read, especially growing up, there's going to be an element of romance included, but like they're increasingly, like girls are increasingly reading things where like you've got like Hunger Games with like Katniss, or you've got Divergent, or that other crappy series where she's like kind of a vampire hunter. I can't remember what it's called. But we're like increasingly seeing this like young adult fiction that is mostly consumed by women. And in fairness, it's possibly because women are just doing most of the reading. I'm not totally sure. But what we're seeing is this like, the culture, in many ways, this is like a win for like feminism, is that like we're increasingly seeing female archetypes that are existing, that are complex, that oftentimes some of them are softer than others, right? Katniss has soft pieces, and like in many ways the soft pieces in the state of the war like is part of what like I think like breaks her. Right, so we have like these varying levels of like complex female characters, but we see women immersing themselves in like these incredible worlds where like the women are trying to save the world. And like anyone who tries to say, for example, that like Hunger Games isn't like a at least a blockbuster series that captures like the heart's mind of like tons of young people is just like coping. Like, of course it does. And so like I feel like a lot of the stories that we were telling women in the past was like a representation of the box we were like asserting women into. And that's been open for the good, like for the better, I think, for the most part. There's cons that always come with it.
Gotcha.
What I want to see is our culture doing the same for like young boys and young men, of like seeing the archetypes of like incredibly respect-worthy men like cracking open, and different stories and narratives that like men can exist in that are like deep and meaningful, and like capture kids' minds.
What do you think about what do you think? People ask me this question, like, what are good role models for men? Can you think in modern movies of like what are good people that like young men should be modeling themselves after? Or
unironic, like Captain America's probably like one of the better ones that I can think of, because he's like the only reason he becomes a hero is because he's like got a self-sacrificial heart, right? But it's like he's still like a pretty shallow.
Okay, but isn't he dead now?
Captain America?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
Well,
I don't follow
that was
this.
our generation's heroes. He's gone now. Okay.
Oh damn. I mean, I'm not watching tons of like kids like content literature, obviously. This is the problem. Everyone asks me this question and I struggle with answers. Like there's like Keanu Reeves seems pretty cool.
Come on.
Oh no, I know. This is
I know, because this movies are like, it's like revenge movies. It's probably not who you want people modeling.
Yeah. The best I can think of would be like Aragorn. I think Aragorn's a great male role model.
How old is that movie?
Probably,
is it 30 years old? 40 years old?
Exactly. Yeah. The problem is that like in so many ways, I think like because this is like why I have a soft spot for men. Like when we look at like the intergenerational trauma, particularly amongst like young men with like multiple wars, and then like single like fathers leaving their kids and stuff, we have like this repeated pattern of like an emptying of like male role models. And I think like the best way to me that is evidence that this has occurred is the lack of like characters. Like you're right, how old is Aragorn? And Aragorn wasn't written even in my generation. It was written like almost a century before it, not quite a century, but like decades before I was even born. So it's like, how much is Aragorn even a good representation of what my culture thought masculinity was? It was more like an older culture. Yeah.
I circle jerk this movie really hard, so now my fan base all anti-jerks this movie, which is annoying. But I actually think a really good dichotomy of this masculine versus feminine traits embodied in the other gender was the husband guy from Everything Everywhere All at Once. It actually it mirrors it so well too, not only because the main character.
Which character?
The husband.
Waymond.
Yes, Waymond.
Yes.
Because if you look at the start of that movie, the arc for that like whole character, like in all the universe, is interesting because he starts off as a really, really cool character because he's like ultra masculine. He's super violent. He's got shit under control. He like embraces like all of the hyper masculine traits. But the way that he ends up helping Evelyn the most at the end is kind of almost being hyper feminine, right? Like don't fight, be nice to everybody, be kind or whatever. And then that's like the part that she has to learn because she has a very masculine personality in order to, I guess, be what she needs to be to kill her daughter. But yeah. But there aren't very many role models. I don't think that function in that way. Yeah.
Yeah, and like the issue with Waymond that's really interesting is like in the different multiverses that exists, he like embodies more traits of masculinity versus others, right? Like in one, he's like a super trained super fighter, and yet it's like the soft feminine Waymond who in many ways like saves the day, right? He's the one that tells Evelyn like, don't fight in the way you're trying to fight, like fight with kindness, which is super interesting. The issue is, the main thing is like, I love that character. I don't think 14-year-old boys care. They'll never care about.
Yeah,
no
but
14-year-old boy looks at Waymond and goes, "I want to be Waymond."
Yeah, I understand, but then that kind of gets back to what we were talking about before. Like, why? Well, it's because he's hyper feminine, kind of gay, kind of lame, right? Like, isn't that the issue?
I feel like it's the lack of masculinity specifically. Like, because I think about like somebody mentioned Jocko Willink. I think Jocko Willink is a really interesting.
Wait, what the fuck is Jocko Willink?
He's like an ex-Army Navy SEAL. He's like super like fucking jacked. He's like he's so jacked his skull looks jacked. He's just like a muscle meat tower.
Okay.
But he writes like children's books for kids and like reads these books to kids.
Is that the bar then? It has to be ex-Navy SEAL whose cranium is jacked?
No, but I think just in the way that like the reason why I love Wonder Woman is because she embodies both masculine and feminine traits. I can like map onto her. Or like, have you ever read like Brandon Sanderson, like Stormlight Archives?
Nope.
Okay. there's a character in there named Navani. And Navani was like the first female character besides Wonder Woman that I saw that I was like, gosh, I want to be like her. Which I basically, in narratives, I always just kind of want to be like the male characters. Like, I'm like, they're way cooler.
Because they are cooler, true.
They are, because there's a shell of femininity. We haven't really understood it complexly. Just like how like we need more Wonder Womans. We need more examples of male heroes that embody both of these traits at the same time, because I think it's really hard to map onto women when you're 14 because you're seeking like a male role model. And it's like, this to me is evidence that nobody gives a fuck about like sex that much. That it's like most guys look at Waymond and like, yeah, but he's not really a good male role model. And it's like, but he's got a dick. Isn't that all you care about? Is like fucking biology? He's a great male role model. But the problem is that all that matters is the performance. It's like the aesthetic. So like if Waymond as a whole person had both soft kindness and was an incredible fighter, she would have both like, not even jacked.
Well, because he was an incredible fighter when he was like in the beginning parts when he summoned the other universes, right?
Well, he was able. I guess it's hard to say because he would like summon like kung fu. So I don't know if that was him or somebody else.
Oh my god, this is the best example. Have you ever seen the show House?
Yeah.
Have you seen all of it?
Yeah.
One of the best episodes of TV ever that actually explores this concept better than anything else that I can think of. Do you remember the episode of House where the whole episode was following Cuddy?
Oh, yes.
It was like such a good episode. Yeah, because it shows her having to deal with all of House's antics on the other end. It shows her having to
after she was a mom, right?
I think it was. Yeah, and she's taking care of her baby and she's doing everything else. Like, oh my god, that was a really good episode because it's always fun to see like the antics of like your beloved protagonist when you're somebody that has to actually deal with it. That was really good. Here's something I don't know if I gave you this take before, but it actually triggered the fuck out of me. When it comes to showing both sides of masculinity, have I told you about the James Bond movies?
No, you haven't.
Have you watched all the James Bond movies, the Daniel Craig ones?
I've watched a number of them.
Did you see the last one where spoiler alerts?
I don't care about spoilers.
He dies.
Okay.
Yeah, have you not seen this one?
No. I don't think so.
James Bond is the most hyper-masculine guy ever, right? Even the new one is hyper-masculine, strong, fighting, fucks lots of women, et cetera, et cetera. Something that actually triggered the fuck out of me in the last movie was he finds out at the end that he has a child with another woman, right? And in my mind, I'm thinking like, wow, I don't know if I've ever seen, I'd have to recommend, I don't know if I've ever seen like hyper-masculine men in a fatherly role, right? Because hyper-masculine fathers are the worst fathers. They're stoic, they don't ever talk to you, everything handled by mom, and they usually die in movies, or they disappear forever, right? Or they come back when their kid has been killed, right? So I was like, this is really interesting. We're gonna see James Bond as a father. But as soon as he finds out he's a father, he fucking gets killed. And I'm like, that was such a fucking cop-out, because seeing like James Bond like playing with his kid at the park or something like that would just be such an interesting portrayal on screen that I can't, maybe there is an example I just can't think of, but I can't really think of an example like that on screen. Arguably, it happened to Iron Man as well, right? Iron Man became a father, had a daughter, and died. And you never actually, I don't know if you ever see hyper-masculine men in the father role, because like being a good father probably requires you to embrace some level of femininity, because the hypermasculine dads are just the absent fathers that don't talk or say anything to their kid, you know?
Yeah, it's like Mufasa. Mufasa's an incredible father and like dies within like 15 minutes of Lion King.
True.
Yeah. I mean, in so many ways, doesn't that like tell us something about like what our society struggles in?
Yeah,
like,
what you value. Yeah, go ahead.
How do we even conceive of fatherhood? Because they're like, oh, that's some pussy shit. And it's like, it's just not. Like anyone who has been like raped, like, I don't know if you've had this experience, right? Like, because like me and my dad, like I love my dad, but like he has like autism, and so like my childhood wasn't like super ideal. But my one man that I respect more than almost anyone on the planet is my godfather, because he is like masculine in so many ways, right? He is like a very successful stocks trader, made shitloads of money just doing exchange and financial consultation. He's kind of a badass. Like he goes traveling all the time and like has dealt like with being like threatened to be kidnapped like multiple times, like a fucking boss, where he just like doesn't even get scared and like takes pictures of them, and like he's super cool. And yet when you meet him, most guys would be like, this guy's a fucking like pussy loser, because he's so soft and like gentle. And there's something to like when I think about like my relationship with like the feminine and the masculine, I think part of probably why the masculine in many ways has been easier for me is because like all the Christian women at church were rejecting me constantly, while I had like my godfather specifically who was like always encouraging me and like being soft towards me. And man, having a father figure who is like good to his child, I kind of say like mothers role in my mind a lot of times with like their children is to like teach their children like survival, like how to emotionally regulate, how to just like connect with other people, like really basic fundamental shit that if it's broken, like you're a whole world of fucked up. But in a lot of ways, like men often like teach their children like how to like thrive. And having like a father who like takes you on adventures and like tells you stories and like lets you like get away with doing like cheeky things that, you know, like mom wouldn't let you, is like something so understated by our culture that like it's so depressing. Like it's like if there's nothing more that I can do in this world, I would love to be able to like have kids so that Nick could be their dad, because I think he'd be like an incredible dad. And like we don't really have these conceptions of like
good fathers in media, yeah, because they're like dying or just whatever instantly,
or they're pathetic. They're just like bowled over by their wives and like, or they're like Homer types where they're just like lol cows basically. Yeah.
Huh.
Which is really sad.
People are bringing up Kratos as an example. I haven't played the God of War games, so maybe.
I don't know either.
Huh.
Ellen Ripley, somebody is saying, as a good representation of feminine and masculine, being brave and caring.
Oh, from Alien?
Yeah.
Yeah, some of the old movies just did it really well. I would argue, I think Sarah Connor was a pretty good example too in the Terminator movies. I think the
old media was so good. Like some of the movies that came out in like the 90s were just brilliant.
I always forget her fucking name. Is it Kit or Beatrice? Or what the fuck was her name in Kill Bill? What was the name of the main character?
I don't know. I can't remember.
Fuck. That was a good. Yeah, she was a good example too. But
yeah.
Was it actually Beatrix Kiddo? Oh, I was thinking Beatrix, and I was wondering if it was because my mind was Harry Potter brained. Have you ever played The Last of Us?
No, but I am watching the show.
Oh. I've only through episode 3. Joel is probably a good example of. He starts off as a very horrible father figure, but his arc is growing into it, I think.
Yeah, and like softening in, which is good. I guess not to turn it back into you. What do you think that you embody like the feminine and masculine well, or?
I think I do. I think I embody both pretty well. I think that one of my selling points, I think, when I deal with people is outwardly, especially on stream, my demeanor is very masculine. Like I'm very aggressive, very dominant, screaming at people, very passionate, et cetera, et cetera. But like in an interpersonal setting, I can be like very chill. I can have like pretty emotionally reflective conversations. I can be like very considerate. Like I think things that are considered traditionally like feminine. I feel like I can balance both those out pretty decently on a personal level.
Do you think that like one is less integrated than the other, or?
I mean, just by virtue of the character that I am, probably the feminine side is less integrated because I don't have very many close, emotionally fulfilling friendships, but I also don't look for them, so.
Yeah, I've noticed. Have you noticed I'm curious if you've noticed this, after the Max situation, that our friendship dynamic shifted a little bit? It might have just been busyness, but I'm curious if there's also been like a shift for you on that like element.
Yeah.
Which I'm not upset with, but just to be clear, I'm not putting my fifis in this. I'm just
no, I understand. No, I think during that arc, there were like 8 different people that I reached out to like start to form friendships with. And you and kind of Nick were, I think, 2 of those people. But then after the Max Live shit, I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna do my shit, I think. Yeah.
Do you think that is like, so do you think that is harming you, or do you think it is like a failed experiment and it would be better to not because, again, I know somebody in chat's gonna be like, she's just trying to be, I'm not trying to max you in like a friendship conversation, I promise you.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it felt friendships and interpersonal relationships like that to me felt like a kind of like a fun bonus, but it doesn't feel like as much of a requirement to be functional as I think it is for most people. That's the feeling I have. So.
When I'm thinking about like your boundary stuff specifically and like voicing needs, how like you have a hard time like seeing if they really like matter that much.
Yeah.
Especially because you probably have the awareness that like you can probably like swallow anything and like make it not matter that much.
All right, until it does. Yeah.
Until it does.
Yeah.
How much do you think it impacts your relationships? Because there's an element where sometimes people want to love on you by being asked to give to you.
That's like it's so deeply ingrained. I've been so independent for my whole life. It's like the idea of integrating somebody into my life is like an important person that gives me things. It's just like such a foreign alien concept. I don't even know how to. I'm like the worst person to get gifts for. I'm the worst person to like if you, like buying hot chocolates for me is probably like the nicest thing.
Yeah, one thing I think about with boundaries especially, that was, I learned from Nick, because Nick has a proclivity where he can always put himself second. And he very much like struggles with asking for things and whatnot. Is one of the things that I noticed about boundaries that have been like meaningful to me is that like he loves me and like trusts me enough that he knows that hopefully it's getting better, that like he loves me and trusts me enough to make asks of these boundaries, knowing that I'll want to give them to him. And that like he realizes that in like the weighing of the values of like whether it's worth bringing up or not, part of it is realizing like not only will our relationship be better if I have this boundary because I need it to not like resent them, which I don't think is yours. It doesn't seem to me that you resent people like at all.
Go ahead.
Do you? I could be wrong. Do you resent people?
I hope. I try not to. Here, this is like an interesting issue to run through, and it actually might not be true. This might be a maladaptive observance I've made of the world. It's actually not true, and maybe I just like filter things negatively. I feel like when it comes to making asks of people, in my mind, I feel like the only asks people want to fulfill are the ones that like make them happy anyway. I notice that there is a lot of people that I interact with who do things for me, but they're kind of doing things for themselves because like the particular thing that they are doing is just a thing that's like really nice for them. It's like the equivalent of like when a husband buys his wife a brand new gift and it's like a super Dyson vacuum cleaner, like 7,000, and he's like, look, now you can clean the house even better, you know? I get that feeling sometimes where like if I'm making an ask, like a truly difficult ask where it's like, this is something you probably don't like that much, it's almost like impossible to do that because there's always gonna be like heavy resistance, I feel. But that might not be true. Maybe maybe I just feel that way. Yeah,
I mean, there might be. I just think like, to me, like love isn't doing things asked for other people because you'd like to. Like that's liking people. That shit's easy, right? Like love gets tricky when like somebody's asked, like somebody is giving you something that you don't want to receive and they don't really have to. Like they don't really want to give it to you either, right? Like making an ask that you know is almost exclusively going to hurt that person or not like be something that they like, but you're willing to trust them to make the ask anyways because you trust them enough to love you to basically like take that cost, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean what you're saying makes sense, yeah. Just like I have to practice doing.
I hear the butt. Yeah, I hear the butt.
No, it's what you're saying makes sense. Like intellectually, I know it. It's just something I have to, I guess, like emotionally lean into a little bit more. Yeah. Well.
Because I wonder if boundaries would be easier for you if you were willing to basically put into the weight that a person who loves you would want you to make the ask, even if they don't like it, because they would want to give to you anyways. Like they value that you're willing to protect the relationship. Because in my mind, like if I make an ask of somebody that I know that they don't really want and they do react really poorly, I understand that, but that to me is like a little bit of like, okay, like that tells me a little bit about like our relationship, at least in this area of like what I can and cannot trust you with.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Then it's just a matter of figuring out, and then that's another difficult thing. It's a matter of figuring out like what is a reasonable ask sometimes, especially because everything in my life is so abnormal.
I guess here's something else. I guess that maybe I'd be curious about your thoughts. Does it matter if it's reasonable?
Yeah, it does a lot to me, but maybe it shouldn't. I think I tried to ask that question of Ayla, like, how do you figure out what's a reasonable ask? And it took her like, I think 5 minutes to even understand the question. Because she was doing it like in a very philosophical sense of like, well, if it's something that you want, why wouldn't you ask for it? I think that was like essentially her engagement, and it took a long time to figure out like, I think I eventually had to rephrase it to like, what is an ask that the majority of society would be comfortable delivering on, given like normal parameters for like, et cetera, et cetera. Like I had to like qualify the fuck out of that to make it make sense to her. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Ayla's a really interesting one to watch you engage with.
Wait, why? Because she's gonna be max 2? No, I'm just kidding.
No. I haven't watched enough of her. I literally wouldn't be able to tell unless I talked to her. I think she's really ahead of you on a couple of like specific areas in like this area. For example, like her just like immediately knowing like you don't have to ask the question, is it a reasonable ask? Because in that it begs an assumption that the person is weighing your value against the ask. And like that's not what love is.
I mean, like, I don't know if I agree with it. Like, I think that there are some things that we can say are clearly reasonable. Like if Nick were to say, like, listen, I really want to try a new diaper fetish out, and that involves like shitting the bed, like, I think it's probably reasonable. Like, this is a hard no. Like, I love you, but like, I'm just never gonna fulfill this. I'm sorry. Right? I think that's reasonable. And I think if Nick were to like end the relationship, I think most people are like, yeah, that's yeah. Go ahead.
Listen, I really want to try a new diaper fetish out and it involves shitting the bed.
Okay. I feel like the ask isn't what is the reasonable part anyways. I would say it's reasonable to say no to that ask, which is a different orientation.
Maybe.
Right? Like you can make the ask and the person can say no, and it would be completely reasonable and understandable for them to say no. But can't you still make the ask?
Well, yeah, but I mean that's obviously. But the question isn't the question isn't like can you make the ask? Is it reasonable to like demand or expect this ask to be met, right?
I feel like when you're making an ask, you're not demanding it. Usually. Boundaries, you're kind of demanding it. But asking like, hey, this is what I need in the relationship or anything like that, there's an element that like is an ask. I guess the demand would be if your ask is, I need this thing, and if it doesn't happen, it might be the end of the relationship. Okay, well that's definitely like a different type of ask. But like at least in the case of like the diaper fetish or like something like that, something akin to that, can you like take on something that would like kind of suck a little bit for me anyways, basically?
Yeah, I guess I feel like that's what asks ultimately are, right? Are establishing like these are things that I kind of need for this relationship to work well, and at some point, if enough of them aren't being met, then you're probably gonna end the relationship, right?
Yeah. I think like at like a large like macro scale for sure, right? That's the like transactionalism in relationships is real, right? There's an element where like, yes, if you make too many asks and it's unfair or unreasonable at like a macro level, at some point that's gonna like be a problem. So there's like when you're making an ask, I suppose you get to like keep in mind maybe the balance of the macro. But I feel like you're so far behind that where like you're even hesitant to even make the ask that I don't know, I guess I wouldn't worry that much about the macro, but maybe that's just my opinion.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair. I know what you mean. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. What else? Anything else?
No. Why did you get back into StarCraft?
I beat Factorio. I just got the itch. I didn't want to play League again. I miss like 1v1 games. Yeah. Is that okay? Is that acceptable?
Sure. Did you go get my gift yet?
Which gift?
Oh, you bitch, for your birthday.
Let's go rock climbing.
What did you get me?
I told you to pick it up. I'm not telling you what I got you. I told you it was an extremely expensive, rare gift.
Oh shit.
That I shipped from Amazon.
Wait, would I know if I picked it up?
Old apartment. It's blue.
Oh fuck. I'm worried that I either picked it up and like thought it was for Melina and I threw it away, or
Wait, why? If you thought it was for Melina, why the fuck would you throw it away? Very mean.
Or like I asked her like, is this yours or whatever? She's like, no, it's not mine. I'm like, oh, okay, this must have been a mistake. I wouldn't have thought that.
I think I signed it. I think my name was attached to it.
Oh.
Like I sent it as a gift.
Huh.
There's a little cat thing.
Did you...
I'm gonna be so sad if you threw this out.
Well, no,
oh
I don't think I would have thrown that out. Fuck. Wait, can you
I can link you. I mean, I can just. It's a little cat. It's a little.
Or wait, you don't have to tell me.
Thing.
It's a little. Can you like do a check on the shipping to make sure that it showed up at my house and it didn't get like rejected or something?
It went to your old house. Yeah, I checked. I sent it in like a week before your birthday, so. It's
oh
probably gone by now.
fuck.
It's okay. It wasn't actually very expensive.
Well, now I feel bad.
Wait, you should. I'm just kidding.
Fuck you.
Bridge burnt. Friendship over. I'm returning your fucking camera too.
Bitch.
Oh, you're so okay. Right. Nope.
Yeah, is that it? Is that all she wrote?
That's all. That's all she wrote. Now that I know that you can't say my name right most of the time. And
Kyla, I got that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your main reaction to my President Sunday thing was oof. Good, solid. Solid.
What do you mean by oof? Is that what I said?
Yes. A lot. Oof.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Wait, what did you... Wait, what did you ask me that I said oof to?
Nothing. When you were watching my, like, big video that I released.
Oh, because
Like...
I understand that it's your life and it's your world, so it feels like so much more important. But when I looked at it, like, in my mind, like, President Sunday is such a fucking, like, loser. I couldn't imagine, like, any of his shit, like, carrying any weight.
I know.
Yeah, because it's just, like, all of his accusations are so, like, that one tweet really summarized it well from Loner Box. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Yes, with the like, big guy, like, walking into the store.
Yeah. Just for how ridiculous all of his claims were. And I'm like, damn, she's going really hard fighting this loser fucks allegations that just super don't fucking matter because this guy's just such a fucking loser. Yeah.
Well, the issue is if they get sent to employers, and employers are very, like, mamby-pamby, and, like, kind of, I just don't trust employers.
No, I understand what you mean, yeah. It's like my shit with the Mac stuff, right? Like,
yeah.
Some people, were like, why do you care that much? Assuming you haven't raped anybody. It's like, yeah, it feels really fucking weird. And especially when, like, employers and stuff get involved, yeah, it feels really bad.
Yeah, like, I wouldn't want his video being the only one out there that, like, people could send to my employers, because, like, there's just, like an employer's, like, crime, so it's like, I don't want my employers thinking, like, there's any chance that I embezzled money from the government. I just, like, I can't have that, for obvious reasons.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. Yeah, well. Yeah. You said you're not gonna...
Anything else on your mind?
Is he gearing up to do, like, another, like, big video, or?
I'm not sure. Sounds like it, possibly.
Yeah, because he was tweeting a lot of that. She's committed the most absurd thing, blah, 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 and, like, yeah.
I'm sure it's nothing. The most I can think is my fucking prof, Wendy, attached the wrong date on her damn... So she did the right day, but she kept it as 2022. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? So I emailed her, and I got that corrected, and, like, post the correction, obviously, but that's all I can think of, other than, like, maybe he's gonna, like... I don't know. Who knows? He's conspiracy brain. Yeah. Yeah. Any tips that you've noticed?
No, I mean, I feel like the only thing I would say is, like, brevity. If you could do the videos, like, shorter. It kind of sucks when somebody's got, like, a punchy, like, this is why Kyla's a fucking scammer of the government, and it's like, okay, well, here's the response. It's an hour and 40 minutes long. That's probably not. Yeah, I was thinking of releasing another version that's like 20 minutes long. Yeah, just to condense, like, here's his point, here's my point, here's his point, here's my point. Might be better, yeah. Any tips in general about, I was mentioning wanting, like, any feedback about debating. I don't know if you've seen any of my debates, though. No, I haven't seen anything recently. Are you still doing a lot of kind of, like, the dating red pill related stuff? Yeah, I'm still doing that, but I'm still... like, debate-wise, I'm doing, like, the classic Twitch poll stuff, so, like, tons and tons of different topics. Yeah, I feel bad because a lot of my, like, native community is getting a little bit exhausted of it, but but all of my, like, new viewers and stuff are coming from that world, so I've got people saying, like, this stuff is boring, I'm done with it, and simultaneously it's, like, by far, like, my most popular content, so obviously, like, people in general aren't done with it. I know. Yeah. Well, that's, like, kind of the mindfucky thing, right? Like, so many people are like, I wish you just did, like, more of your academic, like, psych stuff. And then I interview, I can't underscore to enough how big of a deal Stephen Farrowan is. Like, this guy has an H index of, like, over 200. He is known as the most influential psychologist who is, like, alive today, as far as, like, research contributions. I got, like, 1,000 views on that fucking video. Like, nobody cares at all. So it's like, I know people are saying that they, like, want this, but it feels like they want the aesthetic of this more than they actually like they don't really want to watch it. They just want to say, I'm subscribed to a channel that does science stuff. But it's like, I get that, but, like, or like they want to watch it, but they also want to be entertained, and they don't realize how hard it is to make that type of content, like, entertaining, basically. Yeah, exactly. And here's the issue. Here's my theory with drama content specifically, is it's like,
drama content is so appealing to everyone, and like this dating red pill stuff, because necessarily in many ways you're talking like your viewer feels like they're involved, like it involves them in some way, because when you're listening to a drama you can picture like, this is what I would do in this situation. Oh, I wouldn't have said this, I would have said it like that. Like you can kind of imbue and project yourself into the drama. And same with like dating and red pill stuff. Like most people have dated or like tried to do relationships and can kind of map onto like these interpersonal struggles that we have. Yeah, which is I think why it's like so popular, and it's easy to consume. Like you can throw it on the background and like clean your house, and you don't have to like worry about it or like look up words because you like somebody's using like technical language. Yeah, everybody loves drama everywhere. It's always funny when people act like they're above it, when like in any industry like drama is king always, right? Always, yeah. Just do you think it's just better to embrace it or like try to tailor it in a certain direction? Or I mean, like, you should always try your best to, I guess, like live up to whatever values, right, that you're trying to aspire to. So if like the psychology and everything's important, obviously you want to include that as much as you can, but like you can't just like suicide your channel on the table of like trying to be the most academic person you can be, you know? Right. Yeah, you have to be like more flexible. Yeah. All right. Okay. Well,
Are you going to TwitchCon, Las Vegas, Destiny?
Yeah, in Vegas, I'll for sure be there, yeah.
You're gonna like just troll around the outside. I guess you can't because Vegas is so damn fucking hot. What are you gonna do? Just troll around on the outside again?
Yeah, we should plan some stuff ahead of time. Sorry, I'm way delayed.
Yeah, we should actually. Yeah, we should. Yeah, I mean, it's fucking Vegas, so yeah. As long as I got people to hang out with, and I know a lot of people in that area, so yeah.
Nice.
Okay.
Great. Sweet.
Well,
if I don't see you before then I'll see you then.
Yeah.
Let's go on a hike and throw viewers off cliffs.
Yeah?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
I'll think about it.
Okay.
Alright, have fun, be careful. See you guys later, peace out.
Bye.
Bye. 1, 2, 3, 4. This game is over. I've got my 3 threes, I got my adrenal glands. I just have to run around and kill his shit until he leaves. Unless he gets a super nasty banling hit. Or a banling hit? We don't mind. Unless I'm missing like a 5th somewhere. Or like a 4th, or I guess. Nah, I'm not. I have like so many mutas, I can almost just fight directly. And they're like, oh wait, they're not 3-3. Oh, it's coming. Ooh. I should just bring my lings up here actually, fuck. He stemmed these guys to death. Can I just fight with my muta? Are we suiciding right now? Nah. Damn, this guy's really... All you need is a barracks and a dream, I guess. Think this guy's gonna G me? Nope. Jesus. Alright, will I be back at normal time tomorrow? That is the question. Let's see, what do we have? Who introduced you to StarCraft back in the day? I think Frank and Kyle did in like 3rd or 4th grade, StarCraft 1. I love you for opinion. It's not really familiar with video games, but I like the pretty lights, haha. Thanks, buddy. I don't know what that means, but okay. Cream. Tomorrow I have nothing scheduled. I think I'll be streaming No Hunter. I think. Hopefully. I'm gonna PK again at some point. Probably at some point. We'll see. Oh, I'm Masters now. What is Grand Masters? Is it like 6,000? Oh shit, wait, I way overshot that. Grand Masters is 5K? What the fuck? Okay, I'm at 4.4. Huh. Are there any more questions for the Twitter files, guys? I'm curious as to what the general structure of their reporting operation was like. There doesn't seem to be a supervisor or editor where it seems like probably should have been. It blows my mind they can't see how the guy who just got 44 billion in financing doesn't have the capability to cherry pick a few emails. Yeah, I don't know. But what the fuck? Sorry. Okay, weird shit. Okay. We're in the zone. Throw up another game. It's 2 a.m. I don't want to. I fuck my sleep schedule up so much. Okay. We might dig into this tomorrow. The Marquis person, or Marcus? I don't even understand. Marquis? Marcus? Somebody's saying there's like a missing persons report on his wife, that she's like abducted or whatever. Is this real? I'm super curious now. Wrong black guy. Oh, this is just another Marquis. Oh, well, why the fuck do I care about this person then? Never mind. Is that the Saint Sinner guy? I thought so, because I thought he had the same first name. Oh, the Saint Sinner guy is Marquette. Whatever. Alright, have fun.